The EU dominance continues with the Hex Mambo on top over the SPL talent. And now we've got a matchup, dog versus dog. The Wargs going up against the Hounds, hoping to continue on the EU dominance that they've been maintaining pretty much all weekend long. You've got Frog, you've got Trelly. Let's take a quick look at the bracket for the SMITE Summer Masters here. We are only going to quarterfinals, and this will determine our last quarterfinals matchup. The Eldritch Hounds going up against the Niflheim Wargs. Whoever wins this set will be going up against to face the Highland Ravens a little bit later on today. But for now, I'm sure they're focused on just winning this one. The Hex Mambo, the SCC team, will continue on into the bracket. If we get the Wargs taking this one home, it will be another SCC team continuing on making top 8 in the bracket. I'm sure both teams fired up for this one.
I imagine that, seeing Mambo win might fire up the Wargs and say, hey, we can do this. They probably had the confidence regardless, because a lot of these teams have been filled with that SCC level confidence saying, we're better than everyone thinks, number 1 and number 2. We can surely pull off some upsets. But in this particular instance, I think the Hounds they've been on a decent streak. They are a little bit more of a complete squad than the Gladiators have been as of recent. So I'm going to say the Wargs definitely have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to take on any SPL team. But I agree, especially the Hounds. They've been on a little bit of a run recently. I think they had the same record as the Dragons, who ended up in that main bracket, the 3-7. So they've certainly found their successes. And I think over the time that they've been together as a team, there were some questions early on. Parts of the Valks, previously the Valks ended up on this team. There were questions early on about how they would mesh, but they've been on the upswing, it feels like.
Certainly have. And in this case, I think having Coast on LAN is also a big deal. He's been popping off just from home at this point, so having him on LAN is going to be a big boost for the team. So maybe even more confidence for the Hounds going in. So I still think the Wargs are able to use the fact that they've been playing a couple more games. The Hounds have been sitting at home watching more often than not. So the Wargs have had to play through the gauntlet, losing early on. So because of that, they do have a lot more experience. They've had a lot to just sit by and watch the meta, and I think that is a bit of a benefit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is on the Hounds that are going to be coming out a little bit with, potentially less practice, certainly less practice playing here in the studio on LAN. We're going to see just how they're feeling about that. We've gotten an interview up with Vaporish Coast.
That's right. I've got Coast here for our pregame interview. First off, good to have you back in the studio finally now with the team. And we'll kind of just start there. How does it feel back to be on LAN, now in the full squad with your team, finally getting to see them for the first time as they walk into the studio today?
Yes, it's nice to see everyone. The first time I saw them was today, and the vibes feel really good. It's just nice to see everyone. And, I've been up the scrim here in the studio all week, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable playing on LAN again.
And now kind of going up against some EU counterparts here as a team, some players that you got to just play against with and against kind of recently up in this past year. How's it now feel getting to go up against the SCC to try and qualify up for this bracket?
Yeah, it'll be nice to play against some of the EU boys, my good friends. They talk a big game, but they've not been able to back it up yet. But hopefully we don't fall into the same trap as Glads and get knocked out early.
Yeah, hopefully so. And kind of talking about this, we've seen the Niflheim Wargs play style a little bit. It's kind of been a little bit more early focused, maybe towards late. What kind of adjustments have the Hounds been making since we last saw you guys at the playoffs coming into this new patch for this team?
I don't think we've changed too much. We're not going to focus on how they play. We just focus on ourselves, because if we know we play as good as we can, but they should have no chance really, because I think that team is just Rapio does everything for them, and Pat can easily match them. So I'm feeling good.
Well, we'll see how you guys can do. Coast,
Thank you.
Best of luck in your match. Let's get back with the team, and we'll throw it back to the desk.
Thank you.
They should have no chance, really, is what Coast said. Essentially just running that team through Rapio. Those are big words.
They're big words, but Coast has never been one to trash talk after the game. He is going to trash talk before and then try and back it up. More often than not, he does. I think he's earned that right. And we already saw one Penta today, and with Coast in the building, I've got high hopes for a second one.
Yeah, the cards are indeed set out on the table. I mean, the Wargs definitely are feeling a little bit fired up, surely, after that Hex Mambo win. You've seen the EU dominance. You just saw that SCC can indeed take down SPL. And so I think you've watched over the shoulder, and you've said, okay, maybe we can do this. You're starting to feel a little bit better. But also, the Wargs have to battle back against that mental state, considering they've almost made it so many times to this first seed of the SCC. They've fallen to the Mambo several times. Now they're hoping that they still can, even though falling to the Mambo, they still can come on top on the SPL.
Right, and I think that it does help with the mental, though, because the team that you have had troubles with did just have a fantastic performance, and it was kind of close game number 2, but game number 1 was not close. So in that instance, I imagine, of course, the Wargs are like, hey, you saw the team that we had struggles with just looked real good, so we are still able to play up to that level. I don't think they're going to worry about it too much. I do think that Davey, I want to see a little bit more from him because his positioning has came into question a few times so far this weekend. We know when he positions correctly and is able to just free farm in fights, he looks really solid, but there's been times where I've wondered why he's stepping so far up. He gets caught out. Things like the Odin cages were a big question for me. So when you're up against Coast, I don't think you can make mistakes like that. He is one of the more aggressive ADCs in the league, and I do want to see a lot coming from Davey. I don't agree with Coast that Rapio is the whole team. I think this squad in general plays through their front line very well. Kana has been such a big part of the team fight here for the Wargs. So it's not just the Rapio show, but I think Coast was probably just saying that, trying to get into their heads.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the stats here in front of me. Davey actually has the most deaths of all of the SCC players. He's tied with Sam for Soccer. Up
he's
there,
getting after it. That's
yeah,
what that means. He's playing aggressive.
He's playing aggressive. Maybe not what you want to see from the ADC role. Definitely going to have to shore that up here. But I think you're feeling good, and I think you definitely have to have a plan going here into picks and bans for game number 1. Certainly, if you're the Hounds, you have gotten a chance to see what the Wargs have played over the past 3 days, seen their take on the meta, and if you're the Wargs, you should be feeling confident in your meta. You've beaten out other NA teams. You've beaten out almost everybody here on LAN already with this meta that you've been sticking to. So I think both teams should be coming in here with confidence and an idea of what they want to take away. Maybe, though, it's the Hounds that are going to be focused on a couple more target bans from their side.
Yep, wouldn't be surprised. First pick slot, the Thor and the Alquang taken away, and this is a smart call. Despite the fact that is a lot of Rapio's God pool as well, Oath has been disgusting on some of these picks. Giving him any bit of leeway, not a smart call. Hachiman is open, and that's immediately where my mind goes to. There are so many other bans that could be in question, but getting Davey on something that is safe and cannot be camped is probably a smart call, and taking that away from Coast also could be an idea. But the Wargs are going to grab that Terra, maybe leaning towards that Oleron composition they've been running every once in a while. It does unfortunately put Davey on an immobile character with no CC immunity, but that Sanctified Field has been working for him.
Yeah, they have been leaning more towards the Oleron as of these last couple of matches. And that won't be banned out by the Eldritch Hounds. Instead, it'll be a mid laner supports and taken away from the Hounds. And sure enough, they don't pick up the Hachiman on the side of the Wargs, so it will be the Hounds who lean early into that double ADC composition. I think more than likely sending this Marty towards the mid lane, sending this Hachiman over towards the ADC role. They get their damage up top.
Marty the mid lane menace, that's what they call him. Everyone says it. I'm sure you've heard it as well,
Totally.
Of course. You're not going to worry too much about stacking all that physical damage because you've got the Parag Shred from Marty. His ultimate is pretty disgusting if you just want to make sure you grab it. Good call banning away the Alquang, though. That is usually what the Hounds like to go towards when they go a double hunter composition like this. So because it's unavailable, Oath is going to have to look towards either A, the Hebo or the Poseidon, or B, just going in, double dipping into like a 4-Fizz composition. The Ganesh is going to be the call, which I think has a fantastic matchup into the tier and the Terra specifically. If they're trying to get to the backline and use their movement, they just get silenced out, and it can be a big problem.
Well, as we go into the second ban phase here, Eldritch Hounds, they are aware of what the Wargs have been playing, and I think sure enough they are going to take away this Oleron. And I think if you're the Wargs, you're probably okay with that. If you didn't pick this Oleron in your top 3, you're not going to design your entire draft around it. I think that may be foolhardy. But I mean, with this top 3, right, as this second phase of bans come through, with this top 3, you're seeing damage focused out for the Hounds. You're seeing a little bit more frontline focus out for the Wargs. Who gets the better end of it?
I mean, so far, I'm liking exactly what the Hounds have done. The Ganesh is the only pick that is not top of the tier list, but of course, I think matchup dependent, the tier and the Terra aren't going to appreciate it. But when you look at the Wargs, this Discordia has been on the rise. So I credit Marty a lot because it's proven in the SPL and it's so strong, but this Discordia has been doing quite well up at the SCC level, so we'll have to see, how much value that gets up against a team like the Hounds. But still, I mean, Marty and Hachiman, disgusting late game. I'm going to give the top 3 edge over to the Hounds.
Bans continue to come through. Yorm taken off the board. A little bit interesting there from the Wargs, but not the best matchup for Kana's tier. And speaking of Kana's tier, glad he's able to go back to this one, right? King Arthur's still on the board as well, so we may see that banned away, but instead it'll be another target ban towards Oath. They really want to make this Hounds jungler uncomfortable.
They can try. I mean, Oath has a very diverse god pool. The Susanoo is still available, but doesn't have the greatest matchup into what the Wargs have drafted so far, so maybe that's why they're not leaning in towards it. And it's also possible that this Serket pick has gone under the radar for, I want to say, this whole tournament. It's still a fantastic jungle pick for early aggression. You have built-in crit now, so you don't even have to itemize into it if you don't want to. Serket has been, I mean, top of the jungle priority in the SPL for quite some time, and it's going to be picked up here. Relative free, just helping out for some of that CC, some of that lockdown, trying to bridge the gap between early game to late game when these hunters can just take it away.
You get a lot of facilitation with this pick, although we did just see Kirmi struggle to have an impact in Game 1 of our previous set with this same Serket pick. But Niflheim Wargs have the last part of their draft set out in front of them. They've got to go for an ADC and more than likely looking for a jungler as well. That Rapio pick, the Camazotz, has been taken away, and noticeably a number of Rapio picks banned away by his own team. No Thor, no Ravana, no Bakasura. All picks that he's played in the past. So he may have to go towards something new here in this last two, and they are taking their time.
Wow.
Thinking about it, it looks like it will be the Hebo locked in going into the jungle.
Yep, I think that the Fenrir could have been on his mind, but then he saw how much was able to cancel out the Brutalize, and I was like, I have to go something else. And the Hebo is going to be a good look. Takes a bit to get online, but once you get there, that one-shot potential can be absurd. I don't think has the greatest matchup in the Serket, just because of you want to start Blink, you want to be aggressive, and Serket really says, I'm going to one-shot you. If you start Blink, I am forcing you to play a little bit passively with the beads, but once Hebo gets late game, he doesn't care too much about Serket. He's able to use that crushing wave aggressively, and the Guan Yu. I mean, the Hounds got a lot of the top of the tier list picks here. Plenty of healing, plenty of engage. They've got Prot Shred, not only with the Guan Yu, but of course with the Marty. They're not going to stress too much about having this many physical characters when they can just take away. You could build full Fizz Prot and it's not going to matter.
Yeah, they have a lot of Shred on the Hounds composition. I'd been a little bit surprised that they didn't go towards the King Arthur. I think that's still up on the table, but Ducky feeling a little bit more comfortable on this Guan Yu pick. And as these drafts round out, I can't help but agree. It looks like the Hounds shouldn't feel uncomfortable at all. I mean, they might have gotten, they could have literally put what gods they wanted to play #1 on the list, and they could have written that down in an Excel sheet preparing for the draft, and this kind of looks like exactly what they drew up. Like, this looks like just a pure comfort top of the tier list draft.
Yep, I would say that maybe Oath got banned out a bit. That's about it. Everyone else is like, yep, I could have just loaded into this game, not seen the bans, and grabbed exactly what I wanted. Doesn't mean the Wargs didn't get, a solid composition as well. I think the tier versus Guan Yu matchup is pretty miserable in lane, but you're not looking to find solo kills in this meta anyways. You are clearing waves. Hopefully a blue buff invade comes through. If it doesn't, then you're not getting any real human interaction until about level 12. Like, that's when you're able to rotate out with a second relic, things like that. So, the solo lane's not going to be the biggest deal, but in a meta like this, you gotta look towards junglers. Coast called it out. Rapio's the whole squad. Whether it's true or not, he's gonna have to have a big impact here because Oath almost always does, especially on this Serket. I'm gonna think Hebo versus Serket in the jungle. I'm keeping my eyes on it pretty consistently here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw First Blood like pre-5 minutes from one of those two characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the compositions they've drafted, this is likely to be a little bit faster of a game just through that Serket pick, right? On the other side, maybe you're looking to slow things down a little bit. The Wargs have been one known to take it a little bit later, right?
Yep.
And I think this Hebo, not something we've seen from Rapio this weekend, maybe something we've seen from him in the past, but that is going to slow down their potential across the map at least a little bit.
Yeah, if you wait till level 12, you get a lot stronger, but you still have the ability, if you're hiding around a corner and you catch someone with a water spout, crushing wave a one-shot. Like,
Right.
at level 5, if you have that ability and they're below about 60% HP, you're usually able to find a kill. But, again, you have to watch out for Oath. You have to make sure your ward vision is clean. Serket could be hiding around any corner, and if she is, the lockdown is just absurd. So I do think that Rapio's going to be playing relatively careful unless he knows exactly where that Serket is.
Both compositions feel strong here. The Niflheim Wargs and the Eldritch Hounds both looking to make their way to the main bracket. We will throw it over to game number 1 with the casters for this one.
That's right. Niflheim Wargs and Eldritch Hounds fighting for the last spot in the quarterfinals. And to see if we can have 2 SCC teams make it to the quarters, or will it only be the one in Hex Mambo? It's J-Mac, Alpha Jackal, and Doug here to bring you game number 1 of our next best of 3 match between the Wargs and the Hounds. Heavy favoritism from the audience, at least 82%. One of our more staggering numbers that we have seen so far, at least in a prediction here. Still could be some bias, at least over for the NA fans from the Eldritch Hounds. Remember, ended out their season 5-5. One of the highest seedings that we've actually seen come from kind of an up-and-coming team. Whenever we see these qualifier teams, we typically think, okay, phase number 1, they're probably going to be hitting that bottom 2. Maybe they get up to that at least third to last spot there, but it's been a pretty breakout performance by the Eldritch Hounds so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, 5-5, it's nothing to scoff at in their phase. In fact, they finished 5-5 along with 2 other teams that also finished 5-5 in their bracket, and obviously the Highland Ravers finishing 7-3 in there as well. So we could have even seen the Eldritch Hounds being in any other part of the bracket here. Niflheim Wargs definitely have their work cut out for them in this game, but they certainly have a draft which has the potential to do so. Connor back on that tier, Gunter on the Discordia as well, should cause some problems. Preds playing on the Terror like he has done pretty much exclusively nearly all weekend. But the X factor of Rapio back on this Hebo. It's not a god we have seen him picked up this weekend. It's been banned a couple times, and I'm not so certain about it in this game.
Yeah, I think that was the question of conversation for this Evo, is something that we talked about. Could be a pick for Johnny. Bede's gone from Coast already. It's going to force him into the Tier 1 tower, but back on this Hebo, it's something that we talked about, you know, what is Johnny's next go-to? If he gets completely panned out, what are some of his options? Hebo kind of came up there, but it was more so a question. Maybe some of the change in itemization with the power scaling nerf across the board. Feels like maybe Hebo kind of gets pushed out of the meta with some of those changes.
Yeah, but if we're seeing anything from, for example, Sam Fasoko playing a Poseidon jungle, if he's viable, then that means Hebo is still somewhat viable. So I imagine that they will have still practiced this pick on this patch. They will still feel comfortable with it. Otherwise, why pick it up here? Definitely going to be going into more of what we have seen, though. I think we'll see a Breastplate of Valor come out here from Hebo, because look at the side of Eldritch Hounds. Physical, physical, physical. Ganesh support is magical, and then physical from Vaporish Coast.
Gotta imagine defense on the mind for nearly everybody, at least anybody who wants to be in that front line. Quig gets slowed down, a dash in by Davey, stunned by Coast to bail out his support, but now has he done too much to try and bail them out? Auto attacks are going through, Coast cannot body block anymore, and a couple more autos just out of range. Vaporish Coast able to walk under the Tier 1 tower, both lives spared to the duo.
I think I could hear Davey's keyboard just spamming that 2 button, just going, please come up off cooldown, please! No, he can't find that kill, and that is yet another escape there for Quig and Vaporish Coast. Very aggressive start here from Preds and Davey in this duo lane, but it's not transitioned into anything just yet. They have got positional advantage over for this shield buff. They can look to potentially evade on this purple buff, but they're still going to need the help of Rapio over on this left-hand side to do so.
Now, I think I want to kind of bring up maybe the Guan Yu here, at least for the Eldritch Hounds, because from the SCC teams, haven't really seen a whole lot of Guan Yu. He's kind of seemed to have maybe fallen out of favor, maybe seen a couple of bans this weekend, but no real priority there. Maybe we're going to see what he can do late game, but Rapio jumped on by Oath. Oath trying to cut off the path and keep the chase going. Benny Q is keeping the other mid laner out. Gunter can't even go back to chase through. Rapio gets taunted back in. Deathbait is good, a couple more autos, but he misses out on just 2, and Rapio gets to spare his own life. Throws out the water spout, and Oath forced to back away.
Yeah, it's a little bit too low on mana for Oath to keep the chase up there. If he still has half his mana, I think we see First Blood there from the jungler in a 1v1 scenario, but that's just a warning shot for Rapio, saying he can't be safe going around his own jungle. There is a Serket lurking around.
That's exactly what the desk was bringing up. You never know which corner of the map that Serket may be lurking through. And now, because of that, Rapio losing out on the Purification Beads. Those down for 2 minutes. Preds goes in. Finds, doesn't go for the root actually onto Quick. Thought maybe we would see the dash, but instead going to hold on to it this time through. Davey level 5, a bit scary for the duo lane. Though maybe for the benefit of Coast, does have his beads back up. Might want to use them soon because Wild Hunt is here. Beads forced out. Another easy startup for the Wargs.
Yeah, that is going to be 160 seconds of terror for Vaporish Coast coming up in the near future, because Rapio, he's going to have heard the call that the beads are down. He's going to have heard the call that Vaporish Coast is only just at level 5, and he's going to potentially make his way over to this left-hand side. Do have to try and force out that mounted archery before this Hebo does look for his gank. That's exactly what Preds is doing here.
Preds does get the root. Vaporish Coast undeterred, though, by the damage that Preds is able to put out. Not really the highest damage dealer. Oath lurking around the corner, but Rapio is here first. Quick, maybe the first one to go down. Drops so many pillars, but Rapio's just got too much damage. Coast jukes out the stun. Now with Oath here in the back line, trying to at least bail out his carry. Rapio dives to the top, but he misses. The crushing wave. Vaporish Coast still falls down, but Rapio dies as well. It's a double kill for Rapio, and Oath able to help and get some bailout from BennyQ. 3-for-1 trade, the Eldritch Hounds. They're actually losing out on 2 because Quig just now coming back off respawn.
That was a gank there from the Niflheim Wargs as they look to just try and punish BennyQ. They try and punish Quig, but BennyQ's rotation definitely coming up. Trumps there for Oath to let him escape. He was, what, 1 health there at the very end, it looked like, from iDavy. And then you also have to talk about Rapio diving underneath the tower. Unfortunate to miss that crushing wave, and he is building into that defense as well now.
Going for defense after starting up the damage of that tier 2 Doom Orb. More than anything else for Rapio. Just missing on that crushing wave doesn't feel great. Really meant that he had to trade his life in order to get that kind of a kill against Coast under that tier 1 tower, but Coast happy to take that trade. It means that he gets the extra little bonus bounty from killing Rapio right after.
Yeah, but you may have also heard that Rapio may have spammed on a little bit as he dove under tower. He was dead to rights anyway. Might as well use his last dying breath that way.
Look, Coast does the exact same thing. Coast gets a solo kill, he's going to taunt. Coast baits you forward, his team kills it, he's going for a taunt. It's a lather, rinse, repeat. I don't mind seeing it back here, especially when you're going up against some of your former teammates and former enemies over from the SCC as Preds tries to get the escape, but the silence going to prevent the dash for a moment. Oath catches the second one. Preds able to walk away from him, but Coast going to chase him down on the mounted archery. 2 more autos will do it, but Oath will dash right through the Eldritch Hounds up with 4.
That is a heavy investment, though. They use the mounted archery, they use the Dharmic Pillars, they use the last breath to try and get that kill. They also have BennyQ rotate over for it. That is a heavy, heavy investment to get the kill onto this Terror, who has started off with that Sovereignty. But in the end, they do still get that kill. But have a look at the top there, J-Mac. Look at the gold difference between the two teams. It's about 1,000 gold in favor of the Niflheim Wargs, despite the fact that they are 2-4 down.
It's always that neutral farm. It's the one good thing that the Warriors have been very consistent on this tournament, is being able to take those mid camps, get those buffs. And now the 1v1, Coast versus Davey. Coast will dash out, but Rapio has shown up a fast beads to avoid what could have been a water spout combo into a crushing wave. So Coast's gonna walk out, but that's the 3rd time now. It feels that those beads only stay off cooldown for about 15 to 20 seconds before someone on the Wargs knocks them right back.
Yeah, they're just consistently putting pressure over onto this left-hand side because they know how dangerous Vaporish Coast can be in the 1v1, 2v2, and 5v5 situations. There's a reason we call him the Pentakid. He has more pentas than most people will even get in their lifetimes in the SPL alone, not just to mention his SCC and SMITE Console League days.
Definitely to start off another fight. Rapio stuck inside the pillars. Oath going through, gets the Deathbane, but doesn't get Rapio. Finds the top, and it goes Davey the wrong way. He's forced to use the ultimate to pull him right back in. Wild Hunt is massive. Rapio could have kept this going, but is too far out. It's Oath with his 3rd kill of the game. A killing spree now for the jungle of the Hounds.
We've seen Circuit 3 times this weekend, and all 3 games the Circuit has unfortunately lost in those games. But Oath showing exactly why this Circuit pick is so devastatingly deadly and so highly valued to have been banned out so many times. A 3-0-1 start here for the jungler. It's the fast start you want if you are the Eldritch Hounds.
BennyQ, for a moment, trying to get aggressive against Preds and Gunter. He'll be fine sitting a little far back. Has lost out on some of that neutral farm, which is why you see him just barely hitting over to that level 10 now compared to Guts, who's been sitting there at least for a moment. The Eldritch Hounds still keeping up the fight, still keeping up the pressure. And all of this off the back of the aggression by Oath and Vaporish Coast. Got to throw Coast's name in there because even though he has been the recipient of so much fire from the Niflheim Wargs, he's still stepping up. He doesn't care if he's 2-3 levels down. He doesn't care if you've gotten a kill on him. He's going to step up every single time.
Yeah, he trusts in his team to back him up. He says, guys, I might not have beads, but I know you're around. I'm going to commit my ultimate here. I'm going to commit my my entire body on the line for you guys to try and get this gank off successfully. And that's what I want to see from pretty much every single team here, is just the commitment from yourself and trusting in your team. And that's what separates the best teams from the very best.
We saw this fight a moment ago when the junglers were over here. But for now, not going to see the Dharma Pillars used by Quick. Still going to hold on to those. Coast throwing some pot shots over from the side of the jungle. We'll be able to rejoin and try and take this shield buff away. Though Davian Pred's not going to give this one up so easily. Preds walks up to try and take it, immediately forced to leash it away, and now Niflheim Wargs picking up instead. So again, neutral farm going to the Wargs and keeping them ahead.
Yeah, it has shortened that lead thanks to that 5th kill. It's now back under 1,000 gold. The experience difference sitting at about 1,700, as you can see there on the graphs down at the bottom as we reach the 10-minute mark shortly. We still haven't had a chance to talk about solo lane, though. Every single bit of action has been over on this left-hand side and potentially in the mid lane as well. Ducky and Connor sitting on a virtual island over here on the right-hand side of the map.
I mean, they're John Travolting over here saying, "Where's the fighting? What's happening? We're just kind of chilling over on this side of the map." But I think you're right to bring these guys up, because once we see these solo lane rotations, once these teleports start getting used for more than just getting back to this lane, gotta imagine that's where we see the big impact, the big fight back. We know how big of a playmaker a god like Tyr can be for Kana, but the same right for Ducky. At least on this Guan Yu, has made some strong plays throughout the course of this phase.
And you have a look at their relics. They both have upgraded to the persistent teleports. Yes, they're on cooldown for the next minute, but look what comes up in a minute and a half. It is going to be that first Stygian beacon. Loads of ward coverage is going to start coming out on this left-hand side around this beacon. Look for deep wards from both teams so that solo laners can teleport behind the opposing figures and try and come for the wraparound. But it might not even be the Stygian beacon that we see as the first objective, as the Gold Fury was somewhat threatened there by the Eldritch Hounds.
It's kind of teased.
Yeah.
More than anything else. Walk over, see what's up, see who's standing by, say, "Oh, the Wargs are here. All right, cool. We don't need to commit this hard, at least for this objective just yet." But you are to say a minute away till those beacons are back up. And you were talking about building defense for Rapio. Gunter is following the similar suit. It's a breastplate of Valor for Rapio, tier 2 now. For Gunter, to make sure that he's a little tanky against this physical squad.
Hey, why not? If you are going up against 4 physicals, might as well make your life as easy as possible in terms of trying to survive through the burst that is going to be coming your way. Wonder if it is going to be a Breastplate of Valor as well, or if it goes into something a little bit different. I can't put it past a Breastplate of Valor. 20% CDR is something mages find so valuable.
Everybody loves a little bit of cooldown, especially if you're already a high spam mage like a Discordia. Would not argue against a little bit of extra CDR for him, but it's bad to deal with the damage output that Benny Q has put on this Marty. He's been one of the few Hunter picks that Benny has consistently gone over towards. We've been seeing it kind of bounce around between the two lanes, but at least on the Eldritch Hounds team, this Marty has really found its home over in mid for Benny.
Yeah, Benny does like having these almost ability-based hunters in the mid lane just to try and throw out as much poke as possible. And on the main side, Vaporish Ghost, he really prefers these basic attack-based in-hand hunters. He likes your Rams, he likes your Hachimans, he likes your Kernonoses. Ones that really benefit from ramping up that attack speed and have some form of stim in their kit.
First beacon now contested. Kana's here, gets the blink push onto Quig. It's a 5-man surrounding Quig. He's got nowhere to go. He barely can even get the ultimate off before Davey takes him out. Lawbringer to the backline, but Kana finds nothing through as Benny rains hell from above. And Preds will go down.
That's a spread.
The detonate spreads over to only one player though for now. Kana forced to back away while the Hounds can cap the beacon for themselves.
Yeah, huge investment onto Quick. They finally take down the elephant, but at what cost? They lose so much in terms of their ultimates. They use a few relics there as well. It takes them a long time as well. I think that's the biggest thing, is that it took them 4-5 seconds to kill Quick. You need to be taking down Quick faster than that if you are wanting to start off the fight as a 5 versus 4.
Now the Eldritch Hounds, with their 1-1 trade, keep the game even, get that first beacon, a little bit of bonus movement speed and structure damage afforded to the Eldritch Hounds, and that third pick onto Preds. Probably the big one that at least now helps out for the Hounds. Trying to keep this Terra down, who seems to be potentially going for this walking aura style of build for the team. You mentioned that sovereignty, great against the Fizz, now building into more physical defense.
Yeah, we're really interested to see which one this turns into, because there's quite a few different options that we can have from this Silver Breastplate Tier 2 that we have been built up by Preds, but only time will tell exactly what option he does go for. We were right, it is the Breastplate of Valor coming out there from Gunter. Loads of physical defense coming out from Connor already. Has built 2 physical defense items, going into a third one now. Penetration, though, is going to be the name of the game from Rapio, Gunter, and Davey as they look to start to build up and ramp up their damage, which is something they were lacking in that last fight.
1v1 of the Hunters. Well, that one fizzles out a little bit faster than I'd hoped for. Pyromancer, though, started up by the Hounds, and nope, that one fizzles out too. Every time we pan into action, they want to stop it. Kana got to use the ultimate to escape. Preds tries to bail him out with the wall, misses out on the stun, but keeps things interesting at the least. Gunter as well, throwing out the Strife, just to distract BennyQ and Quig, who are walking through. As far as experience goes, it's only slightly leaning here over towards Niflheim Wargs. A lead for Kana by a level, a lead for Davey by about half level to a level as well.
Yeah, but look at that experience per minute difference between the two supports. 379 to 311. That is a huge difference when everybody else is so close to each other.
Coast goes in, and a fast wave out by Rapio, plus an ultimate by Davey. Two big ults expended defensively by the Niflheim Wargs, and that's exactly what the Eldritch Hounds want. Now they can try and go for a pick towards Preds, but that taunt just off the mark might need to be a call off for the Eldritch Hounds. With vision inside that Fury, unlikely they start the objective with so many alive.
I think if they manage to pick off Preds there, if the ambush does work, they'd start the Gold Fury up there immediately. But Preds just about playing it safe, manages to sniff that one out thanks to a handy little ward, which Oath just about appears on in the nick of time.
Well, instead of going for an actual kill or even an objective, the Hounds, they keep Oath on this left side, and it forces Davey and Preds both back to give up this tier 1 tower and affording some extra pressure now for Vaporish Coast in the duo lane. But BennyQ has gone relatively unchecked here in the mid lane. This Marty 1-0-2 to start the game out for the Eldritch Hounds, building into a little bit more damage now in mid. Is there a point maybe for BennyQ where he starts to become a little bit problematic for the Wargs?
I think right about now is when he's going to start to become problematic. Look what he's managed to finish off now. It's the fail knot. So the second he lands from his ultimate, the first ability he throws out, the first basic attack he throws out afterwards, will then mark somebody to where there's extra crit. Oath on the Circuit has got a crit in this build, but will have a crit % chance already on that ultimate. Will help alleviate that, will help grow that. Vaporish Coast, I imagine he'll be also targeting the same person, will then have some form of critical chance against them as well. Just means that this fail knot could spell the demise of a tank that finds himself in the wrong space at the wrong time.
Well, let's see where the first objective fight really starts up, because Fury, Pyromancer, both those completely faded away. Neither team really trying to go for those just yet.
Oh, Quig.
Instead, it might just be a fight for Quig. Fast dash out, gets him away. Coast out of position, though. He'll go up on the Mount Archery quickly back to the Tier 1 tower. And we were questioning what Preds was going for mid-Guardian Mail. Try and slow him down, both movement and attack speed. BennyQ, he's pumping away autos against Gunter. Ultimate goes through, but Benny right to the sky is going to get the Aegis away. But now he's got Kana right behind him. BennyQ going to try and go down with a fight, but it's Kana who puts him down.
Yeah, and that's what you wanted to do if you're looking to start one of these objectives up next. Kana with a good rotation. The impact of the solo laner has finally been felt here. 17 minutes into the game. It's close to that 18-minute mark that we'd love to see the Niflheim Wargs start to group up a little bit further.
Look at the ward where Kana teleported into.
Right in the middle of the lane.
A greedy mid lane ward by Gunter set right dead smack in the lane. Kana teleports to it. Benny isn't paying attention because he's got his eyes focused on Gunter. And the Wargs are able to capitalize off of BennyQ's aggression. You wanted to shut down onto the Marty, and it'll do just that. But now, a fight over on the left side. Oath used the ult onto Davey, tossed him away. But look at Rapio. Look at the rest of the team.
Double
They're
stun.
starting to wrap around. Oath slowed down, forced to use the beams. But here's Rapio. A blink through. Water spout is good. Still waiting for the crushing wave. But inside the Dark Pillars is not the place that you want to fight if you're the Wards. Preds goes down. And Oath is still distracted by Kana. Able to dash out. But Rapio on a sliver of HP. Double jump in. And Davey may be the next one to go down if Coast continues to chase. Or maybe it's Oath. A taunted. The death bait's good. Kana cannot save his teammate. But the golden apple lands. Coast is as good as gone. A 2-for-1 for the Hounds.
That is not done yet. In the back is Gunter. One more basic attack should do it. No, he is out. BennyQ can't find it. Connor with a double fail. So I don't think that's going to be enough to save his life, though, as he is surrounded by the Hounds. And BennyQ picks up his second kill of the game, and that should be the Gold Fury for the Eldritch Hounds.
Almost any other jungler you look at in this league, they're at 25% HP. They say, I'm out of here. I'm going back to base. Good luck in the team fight. Oath, as soon as that Lawbringer went through, he said, cool, I've got no threat left from Kana, and he sticks around, finds 3 separate taunts in that fight. And the Eldritch Hounds now up 9-5 and a Gold Fury after the first major neutral objective to the Hounds.
5-0-2 on Oath. I think regardless of if this circuit ends up on the winning or losing side this game, Oath doesn't get this pick again this weekend. It has to be a ban.
It's been banned away from him multiple times in the regular season. Surprised he's able to get it so freely. So many other bans were thrown his way, and with all due respect, he deserved some of those bans. Kana, though, goes in with the Lawbringer, doesn't find anybody. Pyromancer still being aggressed on by the Hounds. Benny Q up in the sky, doesn't steal the Pyromancer, but does a lot of damage. Back to Preds, back to Rapio. Ducky chasing in on the Cavalry, but turns back towards Kana. Maybe a turn and burn on the tier, but a triple strike and a double water spout will bail out the solo laner. Rapio comes up big for his team.
Yeah, but triple strife and triple water knockup. Look how much health Benny Q's on. He's still on about 70, 80% health. There needs to be more damage coming out from these mages, otherwise, what's the point of having these double mages? We need them to start finishing off these crucial damage items. They need to finish off their Soul Reavers, and more importantly, like they're building into now, they need to finish off these Ethereal Staffs.
Maybe some of that comes off the back of Quig going for that Heartward Amulet, second item. Try and bail out his team there. Really deals with the damage that Gunter and Rapio put through. And talking back about it, the defense that both the two mages picked in, they've stunted some of their damage by going for these defensive items.
Yeah, it's almost as if they were trying to stalemate and elongate this game, saying, right, we might not win this early game against you, but if we build defense and take this game later on into the true 5 versus 5 fights 30, 35 minutes into the game, I'm sure we have your number there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take you all the way to late game.
Ducky and Kana having a little dance over here on the right side. It's been Guardian Mail from both of the frontliners of the Niflheim Wargs, going to make sure that no matter who is being hit by some of these carries, by Benny, by Coast, even by Oath. In all honesty, even Oath has some great chase down potential there, making sure to slow all of them down and really burn out the pace of this game and try and keep the Eldritch Hounds at bay. It is a dead even game, essentially, at this point. 300 gold means absolutely nothing at this point, and even the XP is little of a lead as the Niflheim Wargs have. This 1200, effectively nothing at this point.
21 minutes into this game, not a sniff towards this Fire Giant. We have had one takedown of the Pyromancer. We've had one takedown of the Gold Fury as well. That is going to be respawning into an Oni Fury. Not the one you want to see as Quig. Catches out the blink from Connor with a good knockup, but instead, it's going to be the turnaround.
Ducky is back, Quig is low. Davey's got so much damage. Where
did he go?
It's a quick HP now. Ducky hit with the apple. He'll be just fine. Defense is good from the Guan Yu. But Connor's going in. Rapio finds a knockup, and Connor finds the kill. Oath forced to dash away. The Niflheim Wargs find two massive picks in the mid lane. And what is Coast doing all the while? He's going to keep the split push up on the left side. Tier 2 tower traded for his team's life.
This is going to be the start of the Fire Giant here for the Niflheim Wargs, and that's exactly why you see Vaporish goes back in, because he knows he needs to be here for this fight. Connor was caught out in the mid lane Tier 1 tower with that silence, with that knockup, and he thought, no, you're trapped in here with me, actually, as he continues it. 10% on the Fire Giant. Who's going to take it, J-Mac?
Ducky had ultimate, but didn't use it there. Oath was forced out of the fight. It's fire on all 5. Ducky has used the ult defensively and goes back to Coast for a bailout. The Niflheim Wargs, in one fell swoop, have brought themselves right back into the lead with fire around everyone.
And it's just one simple fight, one play from Connor, which bursts this game wide open in favor of the Niflheim Wargs, but they still have to make advantage of this Fire Giant. This is only a temporary, small lead that they've got with this Fire Giant, a loan, if you will, that they need to start to earn money to pay back with, and that's probably going to start over on this left-hand side. Davies made his way over there, because look what's up. It is going to be the Oni Fury is up. Tier 1 tower on the left-hand side as well has to fall down.
Got plenty of time, though. Still a ton of towers on the map for the Wargs to start knocking down. Still plenty on the opposite side for the Eldritch Hounds to answer back. Oath.
Connor's found all 5 of them.
Doesn't find the taunt. Has to use the ultimate. Connor's tanky. CC chain isn't quite enough, but the damage is more than enough. The Eldritch Hounds get their pick, but they lose out on the Oni Fury on left.
Yeah, they found all 5 of them, Connor, but the problem is he found all 5 of them. And all 5 of them were not happy to see him living there, and he eventually does fall down in the blink of an eye. That does mean, as you mentioned, the Oni Fury does fall down. This Tier 1 tower on left falls down. The Tier 2 should follow suit. In all the meanwhile, Eldritch Hounds are where the Niflheim Wargs aren't. They're taking objectives on this right-hand side, which I think is a good play, but they need to back now because the Phoenix is under threat.
Phoenix about to be Sieged by the Wargs. 4
they get this in
inside.
time?
Ducky stunt out. Quick can't get there in time. It's a trade out. You lose your left side. Phoenix, the Hounds, too slow on the trigger to go back to the base. Too busy trading out Pyro and right side tier 1 tower. So you get Kana. That's a cool kill, but you lose Oni. You lose 2 towers and a Phoenix, and maybe a little bit more here if you're the Hounds. Benny forced to the sky, but Kana's waiting for him on the back line. Double Lawbringer. Benny's got nowhere to go. He's transformed into a pig and turned into dust. The Niflheim Wargs charging in. Ducky knocked down. Preds, credit for the kill, and the Wargs on a tear.
Oath can't do anything but watches his team falls down one by one on the wraparound. He doesn't have a chance to go into the back line. That is a tier 2 tower and mid down now. That should be the Phoenix as well. Oni minions pushing into the base as well. This could be the end here for the Niflheim Wargs as they look to push in and take game number 1.
30 seconds till the other 2 are back up. It's a 3 versus 5. Pred's gonna tank up the Titan.
They need to fight.
Gonna silence. Oath gonna try his best to take down Rapio, but there's nowhere for him to go. Rapio shuts him down. Coast forced back to the fountain on low HP. The Titan being sieged by the Wargs. Oath down. The Coast tries to get that kill in there. The Titan low. The Titan goes down. The Wargs strike first.
In a upset, I would say right now, the Niflheim Wargs take game number 1. It wasn't convincing, it wasn't pretty, but all that matters for them is they got the job done.
Just takes one fight sometimes. It's all it seems in these games. Just one team fight to turn the entire tide of a game. And the Eldritch Hounds, they give up just too much. They found their one pick on Akana. They took fire off of one. The problem is how much they gave up in return for it.
I think the issue was they didn't back in time to defend the Phoenix. They then push up that lane without respecting the respawn timer from Connor. And you know what he's got? He's got a teleport. You know he's going to come into the back line there. And who's caught out by it? Benny immediately falls down in that fight. And then Ducky falls down a bit further after. You're in a 3 versus 5. No chance that you aren't losing another Phoenix.
I mean, it really all starts back in that mid lane fight where Kana walks on a tier 1 tower. Sure, he doesn't get the fearless that he's hoping for, but he groups up 2 people, sets up for Gunter to get so much damage to start this one through. And then immediately after, we see the full collapse, the full commit by the Wargs. That's the important part, is that commitment from the Wargs to keep pushing forward, take that tower, and just have all the confidence to move in. The USCC strikes first up against the SPL squad. Can they close that on 2, or the Hounds fight back? Student for game number 2, right after this.
Welcome back, SMITE fans, to SMITE Summer Masters. The Niflheim Wargs take game number 1, going up against the Eldritch Hounds, and EUSCC stays on top. Do you ever play SMITE, SMITE fans? Because right now, going on in the game of SMITE, we've got the Colorforge Prism of Souls event, the new Tier 5 Fenrir skin available in-game, and you've got those dyes going on for the Spicy Raw Ramen skin. The new Fenrir Tier 5 as well has those dyes. You can have a pink dog,
Are
Charlie.
you telling me I can change the color of my skin?
You can indeed change the color
That's crazy.
of your skin in-game. You can even have someone ride Fenrir in your skin. It's a whole new thing for SMITE here in the 10.6 update. You're going to want to buy it now. Get 33% off, best value possible. Hopefully you enjoy that Color Forge event. But for right now, we've got the Wargs taking game number 1. And it felt like, Trelly, they just kind of flipped a switch.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much even up until like 18 minutes or so, and then Kana on this tier just decides to start lawbringering forward, and they just take it cleanly.
I was a big fan of the way AJ described it. I believe he said it wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, but they were able to mount that comeback. And again, the Hounds started off to a great moment. I think Oath only died once, and once that Circuit finally fell down, it just was not able to stay alive for the actual end call. But Rapio on this Hebo was able to find some pretty big ultimates there towards the end, as you expect. Hebo can also be one of those ticking time bomb style of jungles. And of course, I was actually very impressed. We talked about Davey positioning-wise. The CERN was still finding deaths for sure, but his damage, he was always in the right place. He was always there to shred tanks, which is exactly what you want from your ADC. And then in particular, you highlighted it, Kana. This tier pick, man, I am just waiting until it's like top pick, top ban for just about everyone, because it has been dominant in the solo lane. Not particularly in lane, but for things like this, when you can actually ult to the back line, get these massive stuns, the disruption and the survivability of this pick just seems like at times can be too much to deal with.
Yeah, Kana especially has been making this pick look fantastic, and sure enough, you can see why they prioritized it so heavily in their draft. They pick it top 2 there. And I was a little bit hesitant on the Rapio Hebo as well. I'm not sure I believed in it as much given some of the other picks that he's played and had success on, but sure enough, he got those 3 items online. He hit those power spikes, and he even has that Breastplate of Valor in his build. A little bit of defense, getting in there a little bit more. That solo jungle combo for the Wargs, definitely something the Hounds have to figure out how to shut down.
And look at Davey, top of the damage charts there by a wide margin. I mean, doing double of anyone on the Hounds except for Coast, and still plenty ahead of Coast. That's what I'm talking about. This CERN seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And Gunter, didn't get to highlight him yet, but that Disco did hit some massive strifes there towards the end. Such a disruptive CC. You get punished for grouping up with your team, right? And that can be super annoying because you want to play as a cohesive unit, but you also don't want to make sure you're standing next to them, and instead of getting rooted, you get feared toward each other, and it's just annoying. So picks and bans are going to be a big indicator of how this is going to go. We saw a lot of focus towards Oath. He was still able to get his Circuit, but Circuit wasn't enough.
Well, picks and bans for game number 2. We were ready to jump right in it. And I'm questioning as the Hounds, what am I trying to do differently? Because it felt like you got off to a good lead. You had a good gameplay from Oath on the Circuit. He was the only one it felt like got targeted in those bans. Like me and you were both almost impressed with the tier list picks that they got in their picks and bans. Is it just play on field, or like what do you change in the picks and bans?
You can't get upset at the gods you got. Like honestly, maybe you're saying, hey, we shouldn't have picked Ganesh. That's the only pick that I could say they're really kicking themselves for, and I don't even think that was the case. It still did provide decent appeal. It's just play on field in this case, maybe a bit overzealous. Again, the Hounds were ahead. They had that lead. They just weren't able to translate it into, you know, the ability to end that game. So in this case, I wouldn't hate the full run back, but this is a great switch up already. Tier finally getting banned away. I said I'm waiting until the day where we get to see that first pick, first banned. It looks like we have arrived at that day. Also following suit is going to be the Terra. I'm curious if the Thor will follow next. This is something the Wargs took away from Oath last time, and it looks like Oath will not get to play it once again. Still, though, that Hachiman, Yamoja more particular, is also available, and they didn't have to think about that one.
Yeah, they insta-locked that Yamoja pick. This time, the Hounds, after losing, they've selected that first pick slot and will take away the top 2 picks from the Wargs last time around. But taking the Yamoja first still leaves the Hachiman up on the table, and will leave a couple other picks up as well. I suspect that, yep, the Baba Yaga, another one of those picks, banned away in game number 1, so they pick their ADC mid lane off the bat.
Baba Yaga the Hachi, that's a strong top 2. Baba has been one of the safest mid laners you can really come across if it gets through picks and bans, and of course Hachi right there in that same vein. The buffs to Hachi just means that he is going to be a mainstay in the current meta, which means the Hounds have a chance to strike back. Do they go for the Surcat once again? I don't see a problem with it. Of course, Oath was still able to get plenty of damage off and set up for his team, but like I said, he couldn't full-on hard carry the game away, and that is usually a playstyle that he likes to go for. You got Umoja, you've got plenty of sustain. The team fight seems pretty linear, right? You're looking for that River's Rebuke, trying to fight around Quig. If he can set up for you, then you have a good time. If not, you back up. Maybe you wait for some form of an engage from Ducky. But the Guan Yu was also one of those picks that didn't get enough value for me. It's still great, of course. The sustain is not a problem. The engage that Guan Yu can provide is always good, but I don't think that's something Ducky wants to run back. The Surcat, though, that is something Oath wants to run back.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against the inherent value of any of these picks they found in game number 1. Definitely going to be something where they're just looking to play the game a little bit differently, but also some switch-ups they'll be interested in. Surcat, one that they go back to, and after 5-1 on the Surcat, I don't think Oath really wants to do anything explicitly super different. He was running the map when they did have that lead. But they do want a little bit more pressure over probably in this dual lane. They pick up the Anhur. Could still be flexed, though.
They will, but this pick is nasty. Wow, the Eldritch Hounds may have just drafted themselves into a bit of a problem. Look at all 3 of those characters. The Riptide trying to zoom away. You get pulled back in by a Wheelix, and of course, Surcat and Anhur. Both are going to try and use that leap to get out. And the Wheelix gets snap locked here, not to mention the possible knockup to come from bringing the house down. Baba Yaga could set up. This could be trouble. I mean, you have to watch your beads consistently. There is CC immunity in play, but whenever Rapio is around, the Hounds are going to be in some trouble there, making sure to hold on to these relics. I have been liking the answer back, though, to Hachiman of Anhur. He's able to block that ultimate with the pillar and just try and stay and scrap in lane. Very small buffs going the way of Anhur. Nothing to really shake him up meta-wise. It's just 0.1 extra attack speed and the slow on the pillar, but that alone has been him catapulted back into some of these picks.
Yeah, definitely going to provide you a little bit of pressure in that duel lane. It's something the Hounds will go towards, but will be interesting to see how the Wargs and the Hounds round out the rest of their drafts. Tank bans come through from the Hounds towards the Wargs, and then the Jormungandr and Discordia banned away, and this is what I was looking at for the blue squad. Kha'Zix has looked fantastic. That's not Kha'Zix. I just got the players totally mixed up. Maui being picked up provides yet another knockup for the Awelish. Definitely going to be a space creator for the Wargs.
Yeah, Preds has been able to control a lot of space, as you said, and I think definitely a good look. The Benny Q Ra. This is a pick that he had been known for at times, have not seen it for a bit now. There is plenty of setup, but a lot of these snipes Benny has been known for hitting has not been for, oh, they've got like a Kumba, they've got plenty of, he's going to hide over a wall and hit the 1 to 2 man snipes. Ra, again, one of those characters that receives some buffs, but is that enough to try and survive against Baba? There's so much range damage that she can provide. You're going to be able to, stay in lane and clear just fine. But even more knockups coming through from the Wargs. I'm telling you, beads is going to be the most precious relic, more precious than gold here for the Eldritch Hounds. They are going to have to watch their positioning to the T.
Yeah, Magi's may be a required pickup on all 5 of these characters for the Eldritch Hounds. You certainly, I mean, one thing though I think about immediately looking at the Wards draft, I mean, we said that maybe the Hounds had drafted themselves into a corner. I'm worried that the Wargs may be drafting themselves into a corner. Are they relying too much on this one knockup to catch out some of the Hounds? Or, if they don't have the Awelish finding that pick, does their team fight still look solid?
I mean, if it was one knockup, I might tend to lean towards it, but it's 3, 4 knockups, including all of the leaps on the side of the Hounds. So there is just plenty of value from this Awelish to try and grab. You don't really need that gravity surge in to start a fight. You've got Maui, you've got Kukulkan. A blink in, a huge transformation from this Kukulkan could just force out Relic. And remember, Ra, not the most mobile character in the game, right? The second that root comes through, or any of the CC, even a Feather Step is enough to lock you down for so much DPS here. Benny Q, I can't press on it enough. The positioning is going to have to be pristine. There's a reason that when all of these healers came into the meta, Ra was overlooked. It's because you have to, number one, land every single ultimate, or most of them, to get value out of this character. You also have to stay so far back. It's just very easy to dive a Ra.
Well, it also forces Julio onto a slightly new pick here. He's been reliably going back to these King Arthurs, back to these tiers. Kana onto a slightly new pick. I'm really in my head about just completely different players.
They're both good teams.
They are both good teams. Cast and Hex Mambo all weekend. But Niflheim Wargs, with these 5 gods, both teams rounding out their drafts here. Do you think, Trelly, put your hat in the arena, get your put your decision on the line.
Here's my hat.
Do you think we're pushing it to 3? Do you think they take it in 2?
I'm going to be honest, before I saw picks and bans, I was saying game 3 entirely. But what the Hounds have here is hard to execute on. It's not as easy as, we just have, like a Baba Yaga, for example. It's very hard to miss Baba Yaga's abilities. Ra is high execution. And after the game we saw from Hounds, number 1, didn't seem like they were firing on all cylinders. I think Oath showed up, but everyone else was looking a bit dodgy. Maybe it was the warm-up, right? Maybe that was the game 1 download. They're just like, hey, we're going to download the strategy. Game 2, we employ it. But this is a comp you have to execute on. You can't have many misplays. So looks like a 2-0 to me.
All 5 gods locked in. Trelly's predicting 2-0. We'll have to see how the play on field is executed as we throw it over to the casters.
Will the SCC continue to dominate through this tournament? Are the SPL finally going to strike back? It comes down to game number 2. An elimination on the line now for the Eldritch Hounds. And they've gone for a very skill and mechanic style of draft here, AJ. You got the Raw for Benny Q, trying to rest on his own merit of finding those snipes. You've got Vaporish Coast going for the on her, something I haven't seen very much of, even with some of the changes that have come his way, those small buffs up towards his kit. And it doesn't seem that the chat is very confident in the Eldritch Hounds. A big sway back the opposite way here for the Niflheim Wargs. But the Hounds going back to just a mechanics diff style of play.
If I'm Rapio, I'm like a kid in a candy store right now, just having a look at how many jumps, how many knock-ups are on the side of Eldritch Hounds and Niflheim Wargs respectively. I've got my choice of anything that I want to pull with my Gravity Surge. I mean, where do we even start? Vaporish Coast is probably never going to be able to be allowed to jump in the game with the love-hate relationship that we know that Coast and Rapio do have. I'm expecting loads of pressure over on this duo side.
Yeah, I think Charlie put it best on the desk, is that the most valuable thing in this game is not gold, it's not items, it's not levels, it is your purification beads that 4 players, including Quig, have had to pick up just because of the threat from those knockups between Kana, Rapio's own Merrick, Gunter, Pred. So many opportunities to burn those ones away. The Hounds have got to play so cautiously around this wheelish.
And now that you do see the fact that Quig has beads, if you're Pred, if you're Connor, you're thinking you're a little bit safer for the first 12 levels because there's no Sunder coming your way. And speaking of Sunder, Vaporish Coast is going to be tasting one of those early on, down to about half health, as the Niflheim Wargs look to try and pick up where they left off in game number 1.
Yeah, Coast forced back under the tower. Only 1 charge of that Sunder used by Preds. And charging up that hook, whether that be for poke or just to help clear out this wave. But I think right lane is where we might see some early action. Remember, because Beads is on every single other player, unless those probably taken away. Rapio maybe unlikely to try and go over to that side of the map. So maybe solo lane, where we see some rotations for these 2 junglers.
Yeah, it could be, but you have to think that Ducky is going to hold on to his Summer Soul Cloud unless he absolutely needs it, because that is his only option of CC immunity. It's his only way of really escaping Rapio and Connor once they do decide to gank him. But it might be an early gank before both of those ultimates are even up.
Rapio rotates through, but seems the cooldown buff is at least the name of the game for the jungler of the Niflheim Wargs. Remember, the Wargs, so far for their tournament, started off great, a couple of 2-0s, hit a brick wall up against Hex Mambo, go 2-1 up against the Valkyries, and another 2-0 for Mambo. So now want to try and bring that win back for themselves. And if they can get up here against the Eldritch Hounds, a great opposition for them to do so here. Eldritch Hounds have got to stand their ground, got to win game number 2 to keep their hopes of this Masters tournament alive.
And don't forget, whoever wins this set will play in our final set today up against the Highland Ravens. We talk about going up against the Oni Warriors as a reward for the team in the last set. Highland Ravens are just going to be as difficult.
It really has come down to a lot of the adaptation of the meta more than anything else. When you have a large patch like this with so many changes that go through, talking hundreds of changes between items and gods, it makes it difficult to adapt on the fly, but so far the SCC teams have been able to do just that. The SPL has left a little bit to be desired against their opposition. Preds knocked down to about half, able to get back under the tier 1 tower. The pressure afforded to the Hounds.
Yeah, and it's on the spawn of those purple buffs as well, so Quig immediately going into the jungle to put some pressure onto this buff. But it's going to get pulled back in, going to take a bit of damage. Davey and Preds undecided about whether they want to go engage on this buff or onto Quig.
Quig not able to steal that one away. The bubble just a little bit early. So the purple buff secured for the Niflheim Wargs. Level 5's now available to the right side of the map. So both these solo laners do have their CC immunity, do have those ultimates online for themselves. And I'm curious to see as to how early we see these solo laners get involved in the fight. Remember, Kana makes a couple of big rotations in game number 1, over to dual lane to help start a fight, over to the Gold Fury in mid lane to put pressure up against Benny Q. I wonder how fast we'll see the trigger pulled from these solos to get involved in this game.
I think it might be a little bit while. I think we are going to wait for that level 10, level 12 mark before we do see them decide to roam out from this solo lane. They're going to want to finish their first item first and then upgrade their teleport, as we have seen them do in the last game and in games prior, if we're talking about Connor specifically. But he's just de-transformed, and Oath thinks that this is potentially the time to come over for his first gank.
Now Oath going to go for the cooldown buff himself, so similar to Rapio, a rotation over, recognizes they might be a little too healthy to go for this fight. It might be lacking some items. Quig pulled back. Is that the bubble? Will slow things down. Rapio making his rotation over, and with beads now gone from Quig, an opportune target, even though Preds had even used his ultimate to try and get that one started through. So Rapio, he's got his first target now. 150 seconds till Quig gets his CC immunity back up.
Yeah, I think it was the landfall that caused Quig to use those purification beads early on in that engagement. And then just Rapio does blink in, looking for the knockup, but Quig keeping focus on where Preds and Rapio were to make sure he wasn't the victim of the knockup. Immediately back to base to not even finish up an item, but Connor's in a bit of trouble here.
Well, jumps away. Couple more in hands. Oath finds another taunt, another deathbang combo. Needs 2 more autos. Use the beads to get away from the ultimate. But Oath can't find the last shot. Kana might try and turn this one back, but now Ducky gonna walk his way through the tower. Ultimate still available for him, but Rapio gets Quig over on the left-hand side of the map. The Niflheim Wargs fighting on all fronts.
And it doesn't even take the gravity surge. It's as simple as that. You don't have beats on your support, and it's a swift kill as the Niflheim Wargs take the first small lead of the game of about 500 gold.
Again, try and elevate that a little bit further. Oath going to go for a blue buff steal since he's still stuck around this side of the map. Is able to successfully take that one away, but losing out on shield buff left. And this is where the Niflheim Wargs have found their strengths over the course of these games, has been getting these camps, by getting these small buffs and by getting these mid-harpies.
I also like that they're focusing on what they believe is the X factor here of the Eldritch Hounds. They know that Vaporish Coast has the potential to pop off in any single game and single-handedly carry, so what do? They subdue him. They make sure that he doesn't get this level or 2 lead that he seems to pretty much find game in, game out. They put him under pressure, they keep him in check, and they make sure that iDavy's not punished for his wayward positioning that we have seen throughout this tournament.
Now rotation back towards Quig. Rapio still has got ult. It's 40 seconds until Quig gets anything back. He's going to be yanked back by the landfall, pulled in by the gravity surge, stunned on landing, can't even get through the riptide, and as soon as he does, it's right into a brick wall. But now Oath is here to try and bail him out. Davey goes in, River's Rebuke already used, but it's 1 down. Benny Q and Coast turn it around, make it a 1-for-1 and maybe 2, because now Preds has nowhere to go. Does he have the swing to get over the wall? Ducky tries to help out his team, but gets stunned on landing. A tire stun right after through. Preds goes down. It's a 2-for-1 for the Hounds.
Bit too aggressive, a bit too greedy on trying to kill Quig and trying to make something happen, and they're punished for it. The dual lane falls for the Niflheim Wargs, and Eldritch Hounds find themselves 2-for-2 and have evened up this game. Ducky as well making his presence known very early with a rotation thanks to that teleport.
And that's exactly what we were calling for just moments ago, is when is that tier 3 teleport coming online? When is it going to get used and by who first? This time, it's Ducky from the Hounds to pull that one through. Maybe not entirely necessary. Did get the stun immediately after the swing from Preds, but Oath already there to bail out with that taunt. So at least getting the assist to his name, give himself a little bit of extra golden XP for helping out there. And keep himself even in this lane. Didn't lose out much by rotating over without Kana.
Yeah, and he still has access to the Somersault Cloud, so Rapio makes his way over, and it's as simple as that. Oxform immune to knockups, and that means he's safe just playing this lane without beads.
I wonder when we will see the next use of Rapio's ultimate. Remember, much shorter cooldown now for a Wheelish on that ultimate. Scales down fairly low, I believe down towards to 60 seconds, and then you throw in things like the Jotun's Wrath and maybe more. Could be seeing that often. Mid lane skirmish, Rapio in the middle of 3, not able to get away. Pops the ultimate just for the extra damage output, but BennyQ's got plenty more. Otho pulled back into the home sweet home damage. It's not enough to take him down, and now it's Gunter on the run. BennyQ taking up everything that's been thrown his way as he walks back to the tower, and a kill for the Hounds.
You say he was tanking up everything. He's still full health. There's nothing that they actually managed to throw at him that did significant amount of damage to him. That's because right now they don't have access to any anti-heal on the side of the Niflheim Wargs. I imagine we're going to be seeing a Divine Ruin coming out here from Gunter, just to reduce the healing coming out from BennyQ, reduce the healing coming out from Quig, and what's more, able to amplify his damage thanks to that little proc of Chain Lightning that will happen.
It's not very often that we even get to see things like a Charon's coin from your mid laner outside of Baba. That 8 minutes in the game, you've already got 3 stacks online because of how active you've been. BennyQ all over the map. Left side, mid. I imagine once we see a fight break out on the right, make his fast rotation over that way as well. But Niflheim Wargs, though, still keeping their small lead over the Hounds, trying to take away any farm they can find inside the jungle. Just unfortunate positioning by Rapio during that last little fight.
Do you think we'll see a Prophetic Cloak come out from Gunter again?
100%.
It's been consistently built up on here on the Baba Yaga in mid, and it's just made the pick the strongest mid pick in the game because of how resilient she has been. But that means you are delaying your damage here, and as we saw in the last game, that spelled trouble for the Niflheim Wargs as the Eldritch Hounds looked like they were going to start getting away with the game.
But once the game goes later, but you know that these games sometimes tend to swing. So we've actually had some very fast games here in our first few. BennyQ gonna try and go for Preds, but Preds can't get back over the wall. His path's been cut off. He's thrown up against the wall, throws out the landfall, pulls one back to him, and it's actually now a pull onto Oath from Rapio. But now the chase is on, and the escape is out for the Eldritch Hounds. The Niflheim Wargs, they spend so much just to try and pull one in, but they don't have any follow-up. Ducky finds Rapio. Snipe just barely leaped over. If BennyQ connected there, that is a dead Rapio.
I think if that is a Tiger form stun rather than an Ox form knock-up there from Ducky, that is going to be a kill onto Rapio. Does just a tiny bit more damage, and also that stun means that BennyQ can line up that snipe and confirm it very easily. Very unfortunate play there for the Eldritch Hounds not to get a kill onto Rapio. But once again, the target selection there for the Niflheim Wargs I think leaves a little bit to be desired. Yes, you can pull in the Circuit with that landfall, but the Circuit will then have 2 abilities to get away from you in the Deathbane and the Ambush.
Yeah, we saw both of those put on display for Oath. As soon as he's thrown up into the sky and then pulled back to the ground, drops both those mobilities, gets himself immediately out of dodge, and then Ducky there to bail him out just in case Rapio thought about continuing forward. Kosto's been left alone on this left side, pulled back in by Rapio's ult beads immediately, but it's going to be the full collapse in. Kosto will stand his ground, but he will fall down. Davey and Rapio team up to take down Vaporish Coast.
And it's as easy as that to gank it on her if you are a Wheelix. Just wait for the jump and you're going to force the beads at the very least. Desert Fury was even popped there by Vaporish Coast, so the CS immunity completely gone for the next 70 seconds here for Vaporish Coast. He's going to have to play very safe for the next minute when he respawns.
I feel like I just kind of cast those across my man. They've been left alone. Nothing's been happening over in this duo lane. And immediately as I speak it, Rapio says, all right, cool. We're just going to keep fighting everywhere we get the opportunity to. I think that's the difference that we've been seeing with some of these SCC teams is even if they're losing out on some fights, they're still willing to start some. They're still willing to jump out there, throw an ultimate, see what they can get, where it's maybe been a bit lackluster in some other fronts. As Quig tries to secure the purple buff, it does get stolen away. Finds a double stun. Rivers Rebuke is there. Vaporish Coast closing in. He wants that revenge kill on Davey, but Davey's got the stun, and now it's the 1v1 that Davey is winning. Jumps over the landfall, but Rapio pulls in one. Davey goes down to BennyQ, and with Ducky on this side of the map, Gold Fury could be under the watchful eye of the Hounds.
Oh, 100%. They still have this searing pain from BennyQ to secure this objective. Vaporish Coast has gone back to base, and I think that's the only thing stopping them from taking this objective, is that they don't have the consistent damage coming out from their ADC.
Ducky actually goes back to the right side of the map as well. Wanting to defend his tier 1 tower. Stop that one from dropping to Kana. And now there's a fight over the beacon. The action's gone so fast, I almost forgot that we have beacons spawning in at this point in the game. 2v2 in the mid, but Quig on the way to try and keep this fight going.
Pred's doing what he can to keep the advantage that they have on that timer, but it's going to be slowly ticked away as it's just 1 versus 3. Make that 0 versus 3 on the point right now. It's slowly, very fastly now taken away of the Eldritch Hounds, and without any other rotation, it's going to go the way of the blue side.
Benny's got snipe. If anybody gets low enough, if anyone steps just a little too far forward, one taunt, one riptide. Good setup for Benny Q, so the Wargs will give up the first beacon of the game to the Eldritch Hounds. We'll give them that nice little bit of movement speed and structure damage. But now what do the Eldritch Hounds do with it? They've only really been keeping themselves alive up against the Wargs. It's the Wargs farm game that's still been a step above the Hounds.
And yeah, it's about 1,000 gold still in lead of the Niflheim Wargs. David putting out a lot of damage here, but he might be caught out by River's Rebuke here as Quig has made his rotation.
Still no ultimate up yet for the Emoji, so Davey safe. His beads still 70 seconds before those come back up, though. And Coast will get some nice healing, both from his Devourers and also from Quig helping him out. Start with a shield buff, though. 3v2. Coast has ult. He's got beads. He can get away if need be. But the chase is still on for the Wargs. We're going to have a 5 versus 3 on the side of the map. Ducky's nowhere to be seen. Preds goes for the ultimate. Coast has used all of his relics and has nothing left in the gas tank. Niflheim Wargs collapsing in on Oath. Pulled out of the leap and nowhere to run. Their tier 2 is not safe. Double kill for Rapio.
5-man strong, the Niflheim Wargs march into the jungle of the Eldritch Hounds. They find 2 for the price of 0. And it's a late rotation here from Ducky that's trying to stop the bleeding, trying to stem it all, but Bennyq's been left alone.
Benny Q goes for the snipe. He hit 3 people. That's an insane amount of damage for 1 raw, and he's still kicking for a moment. But Rapio picks up the triple. The Rivers are there for Quig. It's just he and Ducky to fight against 5. Ducky does get the Aegis out of Gunter, who blasts off away. Ducky tries to go for the chase, but he's silenced out of it. Gunter's still alive, but a Jingu Pang is there. Ducky will slam him down and still keep up the chase for another.
That's 1. Can he find 2 with the help of Quig? It's a few more basic attacks away. Connor, not long for this well. Jingu, bang! Double kill for Ducky as he helped cleans up the mess that the Niflheim Wargs have created.
Eldritch Hounds able to fight back. Their frontliners keeping these alive, but most importantly, Benny Q's snipe during that one.
Snipe.
Insane amount of damage he's put out. And he's only 2.5 items deep by that point. Just gets that ethereal staff too. Benny's hitting hard already, and you don't want to stack up that close in the jungle.
I mean, he's done just shy of 10,000 player damage. I'm willing to bet 5,000 of that was in that last fight. About 2,000 on that last sniper known.
He lived way too long in that fight.
Oh, for sure.
He snipes in the middle of 4 people, hits 3 of them, throws down a heal, and is still kiting around. Someone's got to deal with Benny Q faster than that.
I mean, they invested so much in killing everybody else, though. I mean, you saw they used about 4 or 5 ultimates. Benny Q's snipe is up again, used. They're trying to steal the Pyromancer, and it's close. They actually do.
It. Quig takes it with the bubble, the singular bounce of a bubble at this point. Takes away the Pyromancer, puts the Runic Bomb in the Eldritch Hounds' pocket. And now the Eldritch Hounds still back in this game. The lead diminished between them and the Wargs. And a lot of it coming off the back of Benny Q, Quig. And I got to give shout-outs to Ducky late to the rotation, but just in time to be able to pull back for his team.
It's probably the perfect late you can be, is where everything's been used, but you teleport in and everybody's still around the vicinity, where you can then chase people off and pick them up one by one because they have no resources to fight back into you. Ducky keeping his team in the game here on this Sun Wukong pick, 2-0-1. Level 16, which is the highest level in the game alongside a couple of others. Finds himself a level above Connor on this Kakulin, which, by the way, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. We haven't seen this Kakulin at all so far this tournament.
We've seen 1 rotation through. Gunter, is the house even enough? Snipe off the mark though by Benny. Gunter does live through. Rapio trying to make his impact, but Ducky is standing too far forward for the Niflheim Wargs to comfortably push in. It's a tier 1 tower, but now,
Kana.
Speaking of Kana, he's got a blink to the back line. He only finds 2 with the ult, gets the beads from 1, and Vapor's Coast afterwards. Oath diving on top of Rapio as Kana is now on the run, and Ducky on the cloud, still chasing through. Kana's in the middle of 3, and will fall to his opposition in the solo. Ducky on a killing spree.
And that's a great screen for the second time here for Connor. And look what they're doing. They're grouping up. They're standing in that solo blessing coming out from Benny Q. The healing pool of goodness. Allows them to stay out here when other times, other competitions would have to fall further back than they are. There was a small potential there for the Gold Fury, but I think with the fact that the rest of the Niflheim Wargs are still so healthy, instead it's going to be a retreat back into the jungle, regroup, and get the Stygian Beacon when it spawns.
I think the important thing now for the Eldritch Hounds is this transition from this early game now through the mid game, and as we push towards late games, because we saw in the previous set, 5,000 gold at 20 minutes doesn't necessarily mean the end of the game. 1,000 gold at 18 minutes is nowhere near as staggering as that number. So how does this Eldritch Hounds team move its way towards this late game? How does this late game team fight style start to look for the Hounds?
Well, it got to use Quig's River's Rebuke, as they have been doing so far in these fights, as a separator, and make it so there's two separate fights going on. Say goodbye to Ducky, say goodbye to whoever's on one side of the River's Rebuke, and make sure that on the side where you have the majority, where you have the numbers advantage, that you are winning that fight. Not just winning it, I'm talking winning it, where you are expending nothing to get the kills.
Yeah, win with a capital W, I-N-N-I-N-G.
Yeah.
I have the whole word capitalized now for the Eldritch Hounds. But trying to find anything is Rapio. He has been fishing so hard to find these pullbacks every single time. There's somebody who's CC me, and the only one I think he's successfully pulled back has been Oath a couple of times through. And Oath has just let them happen. He's got so much movement. Take it out. And now as we move towards our second beacon, 3 Hounds stand tall, make that 4 with the rotation in from Coast, and Ducky right behind. This second beacon should go hand over fist to the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, but the Niflheim Wargs are not going to get up just yet. The rotation is slow from Connor, and I think it might just be a little bit too slow. Orderside has captured their second beacon, but it's going to be a pull-in from Connor.
But Preds is now losing a lot of HP. Vapor's Coast is forced to jump out, but gets pulled back in by Rapio. A massive pull. It's a 1-for-1 trade as Benny is being dealt with by Connor in the backline. Benny goes back under the heel, but he's got Quig as backup now, and Ducky teamed up with his group in the backline. Oath and Ducky do a lot of damage. Davey goes down. Double kill for Oath, and Benny charging forward. Snipe is about to be back offline, but he won't use it. It is 4 decimated from the Niflheim Wargs. The Hounds win out the fight.
And that was the fight started off by Preds. That was a landfall that brought in 2-3 people. And they just got decimated. I mean, Gunter's surviving only because he had beads at the very end of that fight, and because he stayed in the backline, and because of that prophetic cloak at 27 stacks, by the way. The Eldritch Hounds, they're going to be feeling really good about that fight, considering nobody died outside of Vaporish Coast at the very beginning.
Yeah, Coast ate a lot there. Ton of damage from Gunter. Rapio's pull in. Grabs him as well. Maybe catches him off guard. He gets yanked back right into the middle of everybody. Goes down, but the rest of his team benefiting highly from it. A 2-3-4 slash line for Coast, but you got to look over towards Ducky, towards Benny Q. 4-0-4 for Ducky on the Wukong, and a 2-1-7 raw game for Benny Q. The Eldritch Hounds, they needed that step up in game 2, and so far, they provided just that.
Yeah, but for all the good work they've done, for these positive slash lines that we see coming out from Ducky and Benny Q, specifically like you pointed out, the gold lead is sitting at just shy of 2,000 gold. The experience difference, just shy of 5,000, so a little bit better in that regard. But we're starting to approach level 20s for Ducky and Benny Q. So that experience difference, that experience lead is going to start mattering less and less. The gold lead is something that they need to start expanding on, and they need to get this Gold Fury to do that. In fact, we still haven't had the first Gold Fury of the game, 21 minutes in.
Yeah, these teams really don't like fighting for the Gold Fury itself. They go for the team fight and they say, okay, cool, we got a beacon. Or, okay, cool, we got a Pyromancer. Those have been 2 of those taken each so far. The Eldritch Hounds and the Niflheim Wargs, only I think even a couple Furies over the course of just both of these games. None here in game number 2. The Eldritch Hounds, though, they can make their way over. They've got Benny Q. That's a lot of extra damage, a lot of protections provided to him by that heal.
It's just a Drake meme where they go, Gold Fury? Nah. Pyromancer? Yes, that's it. That's what I want. But no one here for the Niflheim Wargs. That's a free Gold Fury. It's exactly what I was calling for.
Might have been one of the freest Gold Furies we've seen this weekend as the Hounds just walked up. Preds looked over the corner, said, yeah, there's probably a couple too many people there. I'm not even going to risk my life trying to maybe even steal that one away.
Oath wants him.
Oath gets the taunt. Doesn't really have a whole lot of follow-up damage, though. Just making sure that he buys some space for the Tier 1 tower that Coast can knock down.
And with all these blue wards over on the left-hand side that you can see at the top of your screen, they know that the rotations are coming through from Rapio and Gunter. They know that it's time to disengage.
Taunt just off the mark from Rapio, but Benny Q has met Rapio in the
goodbye.
jungle. Gets the beads away from the Willis. The ultimate's been burned as well. Oath wins out in the 1v1. The landfall pulls Benny back in, but that's just where Benny wants to be in the action. Taking out the enemy mid laner. Snipe is still available for Benny, holding on to the perfect moment as Oath grabs a double kill. Beam clips Prez, and the snipe will take him down. Benny Q's been waiting for the snipe of a lifetime, and he snags it here. Another 4 down at the cost of nothing for the Hounds.
It's 4-0 once again. Vaporous Coast lives this time. Rapio caught completely unawares in the jungle. That high ward coverage pays dividends for the Eldritch Hounds, and they're not done yet collecting their winnings. The Fire Giant looks like it's going to be the next thing in line.
Eldritch Hounds, 2 massive team fights. 4 for 1, losing Coast, and then a 4 for none this time through. Gunter, again, the only one living through these fights, as the Hounds pick up their first Fire Giant 23 minutes into the game and have started up their first lead of the set.
Benny Q is ridiculous on this Ra. He may not have the most flashy scoreline right now, but my god is he playing this pick to perfection.
3-1-9, found a big snipe early on that clips 3 people, finds the one to seal the deal on Pred's health bar. Benny Q's a bit of a menace, and the problem with a pick like this, AJ, is you can't just exactly ban the Ra. You say, oh man, we're really scared of Ra. Well, Benny Q's got so many other picks in his back pocket.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with Crimson. You see him play Yanis, you think, oh my god, we can't ban Yanis. You ban Yanis, and all of a sudden, there's a dub against him. He then goes to the Thoth, think, we can't ban Yanis and Thoth. You ban Yanis and Thoth, and then all of a sudden, the God Pool sort of dries up a little bit. So maybe, just maybe, it has to be a Ra ban in the next game here to silence the Eldritch Hounds. But that does give them a boost as well. It's always nice when you see yourself have a respect ban like that.
Makes you feel real good as a player.
Oh, yeah.
When they got to focus you out, and especially if you're the mid laner too, and on oddball picks, again, like if you're getting banned out from your Baba Yaga, your Agni, your Discordia, that's kind of standard. That's what everybody's playing right now. When your one specific kind of niche off-meta pick is being banned away, that makes you feel real good. Pred's probably not feeling too great after that snipe, and after this collapse by the Hounds, he'll try and swing away, gets over the wall, but Oath is ready, and
he's
so
gone again.
Is Benny Q. A second snipe to the back head of Preds, and now the Eldritch Hounds can march up the right side.
This should be the Tier 2 tower all forsaken. This Phoenix as well should go down, because look at the rest of the Niflheim Wargs. They're split. They're looking at Tier 2 tower in left, Tier 1 tower in mid. They've lost out on the Phoenix. They're going to lose out Tier 2 in mid as well, because they still haven't grouped up here.
Double Runic Bomb takes out the right side Phoenix. Still one more in pocket for Quig, should they want to move. Maybe take out
Rapio,
this Tier 2 or hold on. Rapio walks through the door and immediately has to try and slam it back closed before the Wolf really moves through. Oath is standing by as the guard of this base. Davey versus Ducky is not looking great for Davey as Ducky is juking and jiving around. Davey jumps on the mounted archery just to try and run away, but can he outpace Ducky? The slow keeps the Tiger away, but Ducky's going to make sure that Davey will pay with his life for sticking around too long. Stun is good. Ducky falling low now. Jingo Bang is there, and the Bluestone finishes the job. Meanwhile, the fight on the opposite side, Benny Q, no ultimate available. He doesn't need it. He and the rest of the team have marched up the mid. They've taken the Phoenix. The Niflheim Wargs on the back foot in their throne room, and Kana thankful that Benny doesn't have that snipe as he's able to make it back to Fountain.
Game number 1 went the way of the Niflheim Wargs after a crazy turnaround, and now it's all but confirmed here for the Eldritch Hounds as they group up underneath that heel and looking for one last push into the base.
2 versus 5. Kana tries to do anything. Gunter has no ultimate. Benny Q waiting for his opportunity. Might not even need the ult because the Eldritch Hounds are taking us to Game 3.
It is a Game 3 that both teams here have fully deserved. The Eldritch Hounds played that game phenomenally. Benny Q played that game almost perfectly, but we also have to give a shout out to Ducky on that Wukong, the driving force for them even being in the game in the first place.
I mean, Benny's a menace. That's the best way I can put on picks like this. Remember, you dial back almost a year and a half ago when Benny is qualifying to get to the SPL, it's this raw pick that makes a highlight reel performance to help qualify his team forward. now when he needs it the most, when his team needs a big win, he pulls out again for another dub.
Yeah, and it goes, what, 4-1-10, I think, at the very end, or something close to that. Only one death on the Ra, which, in a meta like this, where mid laners are heavily focused, thinking, how can Ra only have one death? BennyQ's the one that has the answer.
And BennyQ and the Eldritch Hounds get the job done. They tie up the set, and they take us to game number 3. Will the SPL come out on top, or will the SCC prevail once more? We'll find out in game 3, right after this break.
Hounds push us to 3. The Niflheim Wargs fall in game number 2 as they try to hold on, but man, Benny Q's Ra is just a little bit too strong. A little bit too strong.
I'm perplexed, Frog. I can't lie to you, because coming into this set, I had nothing but confidence for the Eldritch Hounds. After game number 1, that was kind of ripped away from me. I was like, oh, the Hounds got exactly what you would assume they would want picks and bans wise, and it didn't look too clean after they had a bit of a spill. And game number 2, I was feeling more confident in the Wargs, and this time the Hounds say, hey, we didn't need those old picks. This is the kind of gameplay we want to play, despite the fact that it seemed like Rapio just had such a decent matchup into all of the leaps and all of the knockups on this squad. It was not enough. Ducky on the Wukong was commanding, as the casters highlighted many times, was a big problem. And we've seen a few Wukong picks, but I think haven't quite nailed down like exactly the build that these players want to go for. Is it Bluestone with some damage? Is it full tank? Is it hybrid? Well, it looks like this hybrid build with the Glad Shield was definitely what Ducky was after. And of course, how can you not gloss over what Benny Q was able to do on the Raw this game? There was plenty of CC, but also some of those blind snipes were just too clean from Benny, and I'm glad that he's finally getting back to this pick.
Yeah, and it's hard to really think about what you can do in picks and bans, because it's really hard to ban away the Ra, in my opinion, right? It's an immobile pick. You're thinking about the mid laners in this patch, and you're looking to shut something like an immobile pick down, but when you're having snipes like that off cooldown, it is just tough to deal with. An Oath as well, 5-1 and 8. He got what he wanted back on the Circuit. They didn't take it away from him after game number 1. Think they may need to rethink that as well. But I mean, we talked about they got everything they want in game number 1. Clearly that wasn't the case. They only got part of what they wanted. But here in game number 2, felt like they did get everything they wanted. And the Wargs definitely have to go back to the drawing board on this one. Felt like they maybe relied a little bit too much on those knockups.
Yeah, certainly was the case. And because of that, I question what comes next. Because as you said, it's very hard to ban away something like the Raw. If anything, you probably just need a little bit more dive to try and deal with a pick like the Raw. Kana, I saw a few times with Kakolin was getting to the backline, but he didn't have the damage to try and finish it off. The heal from that Solar Blessing, the protections as well, really did start to add up. Maybe if Rapio's there, a double dive situation, Benny Q feels a little bit more unsafe, but because the front line of the Hounds was just going ballistic, right? You saw Benny Q was able to snipe from a distance and then stay safe.
Well, picks and bans for game number 3 here. They definitely have to make some changes, and the first of those changes will be the Wargs going back into that first pick slot. This is where they won game number 1 from, and this is where they will end up back again in the all-deciding game number 3. Whoever wins here continues on in the bracket. Whoever loses here will be sent home from the Masters tournament just here in weekend number 1. But so far, the bans seem much of the same. Still the Niflheim Wargs targeting out the jungler on the other side, taking away picks from Oath. And the Eldritch Hounds, they are in the second pick slot, so they don't feel like they can leave Yemoja or Terra open.
Smart call for sure. I think that the Yemoja has been too polarizing, but this is the pick that I was surprised got through, giving Kana the tier. Scary stuff. I mean, forcing him onto something like the Kakolin seemed to work out very well. I just can't imagine the healing from Terra is more worth what Kana's been able to do on this tier pick, but maybe it's confidence speaking from the Eldritch Hounds, or more specifically, maybe they just do not want to deal with that level of sustain in their draft, so they're going to focus out elsewhere. Going back to the Hachiman first pick, we saw something very similar in game number 1, the one that started off great for the Hounds, but ended up not so great, and the Ganesh. I hate to repeat myself, but this is very similar to that first game.
Very similar indeed, if these two picks do indeed get locked in. Hachiman here for the Eldritch Hounds will be headed over towards that Hunter role, and Ganesh locked in as well for the support. I mean, this begs the question from the Wargs. Do you just try and answer back with basically the same composition that worked for you in game number 1? If the Hounds are going to run back something similar, do you just try and put yourself on the dive junglers, give yourself that comp that has already worked before?
I would assume the Hounds know what's coming at this point, right? And they're saying, hey, we know we are in the lead for game number 1. We know that was a thrown fight in our favor, and that's why we ended up losing. So we're confident that's not going to happen again. Or it's just the duo lane. They give up the tier. Something else is going to be the change up. We know that Rapio could potentially take away the Surket, trying to take that away from Oath, but it's not a pick that he's liked to go to. In fact, like I said, has been relatively overlooked, and the Kuzenbo comes through. Look at that win rate, man, 75%. This is a pick that I have loved to see. Terrible annoyance in the backline. Notably, though, the Ganesh silence is going to deal with what the two frontliners so far want to do. Those silences to silence out the Fearless, and of course the Sumo Slam from Kuzenbo can be annoying.
And we're back on the Ra. No surprises there. I think the Eldritch Hounds having a ton of success on this pick in game number 1, or game number 2, rather. And so we'll lock it in again for game number 3. Interested to see how these jungle picks and maybe jungle bans come through. As Oath has held on to his pick until the second half of the draft, as has Rapio, and some of those have been taken away. They will have to go towards new picks here. Oath going to be forced off the Surket, and Rapio in game number 1 went towards that Hebo. That will be taken away once again. But it is clear here on the Eldritch Hounds, they insta-lock that Bakasura right after the ban phase. They want to put Oath onto the carry.
Yep, and I love this pick for Oath. I think that more than anyone, Oath knows exactly when to go in with Baka and when to say, hey, that fight's dead. I'm going to go in right lane and take farm. I am strictly trying to get more items than the opposition, and then I'm going to rotate in. And I think that's a good sense to try and have as a jungler. You gotta know exactly when fighting is the call and when just split pushing and making sure you get level 20 first is the call. And Bakasura farms better than most junglers at the moment. So love that pick there from Oath. Good switch up considering that Surket was banned away. And now the Wargs have to show us what jungler do you pick into the Bakasura. Not many you're favoring in that 1v1, but trying to stay away from the Baka, find farm could be the call. And the Marty comes through for Davey. Interesting grab. And a rat hover. Wow, game 3 really bringing the spice for us.
Bringing the spice indeed. This Ratatosker being pulled out the first time this weekend, I believe. And Rapio looking for that semi-global pressure. On the other side, an interesting hover as well.
Surely that's
if
troll.
This gets locked in. That would be a Kumbhakarna solo.
Nope, not that.
Surely
They're
that's
messing
troll
with
as
us.
well. I don't know, man. I mean, they need something to control the backline, and this Wukong did a great job of it last game. So it won't be either of the Guardians. They'll go back to what's worked.
Ducky thinks he's so funny.
Hilarious.
For teasing Kumba and Bacchus. By the way, picks that I would have loved to see.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have brought too much pressure in the solo lane, but alas. We're going to see the Wukong come right back, and a smart call, because we saw what Ducky was just able to do on it. There wasn't too many answers for that pick. The tier is going to be interesting, though, because Kana in game 1 looked fantastic. Ducky in game 2 looked fantastic. Now they both get those picks back. We'll have to see how they're able to clash in the solo lane, but we're going to have to keep our eyes on this Ratatosker. Again, not a fantastic matchup into the Bakasura. If you're able to jump onto him when his ult's down, great. You're winning that 1v1, for sure. If you're trying to fight in the jungle, Baka catches you out with the Regurgitate, you better hope you get up in the sky in time, because again, that dart getting crippled out is never a good time. But that semi-global presence might be what the Wargs are looking to lean on here in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely something they are drafting towards is to be able to focus down this mid laner. They didn't ban out the Ra. They know that it had a great effect here in game number 2. But only one death on this Immobile Mage. You have to find something that's going to allow you to dive a little bit better. The Gakolan Wheelers seemed a little bit disjointed, but now you've got this tier dive. Kana feels very comfortable on this character, no hesitation in throwing that Lawbringer and just getting into the back line of the fight. And no matter where he engages, the beauty of that Ratatosker ultimate is Rapio can come join him anywhere on the map.
Yep. And I think that's something that we're going to have to watch for, because Rat does have that ability to get active early, right? We talked about the Surket having that same ability in game number 2. Early CC that these junglers have could force ganks, could force early fights. And when you have a raw heal, I usually lean towards that side in the mid lane, just because you're not going to get poked out too often. You still have ease of clear, as Benny Q has shown. So wherever Rapio and Oath in particular try and get active is where my eyes are going to be glued to the screen, right? Even it's a side lane, whether it's in the mid 2v2, I'm hoping we see some sparks fly early on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Wargs especially have the potential to try and find that early game aggression. On the other side, I'm a little bit questionable about their engage. You've got this Ganesh, a little bit more passive. It's just the Baka and the Wukong, neither of which you necessarily want to like start the fight with those ults. What's the engage coming out from the Hounds?
That's a good point. You know, you see the Ganesh, you see the Wukong and the Bakasura dive. It's probably going to be Dharmic Pillars go up, we chase down, force a leap, force an escape, something like that. But it's not going to be easy.
Well, the all-deciding game number 3 here. Wargs going up against the Hounds. Loser goes home. We'll throw it over to the casters.
That's right. It is a very important game number 3 for both of these teams because they still got to qualify into the quarterfinals with this matchup. But the loser goes home. It's J-Mac, Alpha Jackal, and Doug back one final time for this set between the Wargs and the Hounds. A near 66% to 34%. Actually in favor of the Hounds. Usually you've been seeing these game 3, the audience goes a little bit closer to that 50-50 mark. And this time through, maybe a bit of recency bias, and maybe because BennyQ's back on the Raw, Ducky on the Wukong one more time, the fans seem to think the Eldritch Hounds have this one in the bag.
I think at least 30% of that vote for the Eldritch Hounds has to be for BennyQ's Raw consistently. I mean, man did so much work in that last game on this pick. He manages to pick it up again at the cost of Oath's Circuit. They had the choice of either picking up the Ra or the Circuit. They decided the Ra was more worthwhile than the Circuit pick was. Oath has to go back into the Bakasura. It's not a bad backup pick.
Certainly not for Oath. It's definitely one that he, alongside the Circuit, have been able to have plenty of carry style of games with, so not upset in the least by the pickup here for Oath on the Bakasura. Want to see maybe how active Oath gets on this kind of a pick, especially up against something like a Ratatosker. How's that jungle matchup kind of go? Where does maybe the dynamic of these two junglers kind of lie on this map?
I mean, try to hit the nail on the head. It depends on if the Bakasura has the Regurgitate or not. If he has the Regurgitate, it should go in favor of the Bakasura, just being simply because it forces the Ratatasker to go up into the sky early on. But speaking of early on, it's a very early rotation over to the left-hand side. It's going to be caught out by a ward.
Rapio does get spotted. I was wondering what Gunter was doing so far back, sitting all the way by the red buff until the wave was finished there by the Eldritch Hounds, but it seems it's just buying some space and maybe some communication for Rapio to the left. But wise on the Hounds for dropping a ward down there. We've seen those a couple of times when the invades start popping through, and we might see a push towards BennyQ, heal down on the wave. Should deter Rapio from going too far forward.
The second the heal comes out, he realizes he can't go in onto BennyQ there. It's just going to be too much protections, too much damage amplification, and healing to fight into. That ability is probably one of the hardest abilities to fight into in the game for just how much it does in a small area.
Yeah, that raw heal has definitely become a very potent ability, not just for the god, but just in general. So far here now in 10.6. Niflheim Wargs had a strong statement in game number 1. Eldritch Hounds took them a little bit to ramp up in game 2, but able to find the win off the back of a couple of big team fights. Remember, it was a 4-1 trade in mid, and then a 4-0 trade immediately after. For the Eldritch Hounds to find a win in game number 2. Push up Fire Giant, take the game. And now Niflheim Wargs got to find their fight back. Got to find that same fire that they had in game number 1 with rotations like this by Oath to try and deny farm to Khan. It's a 2v2 brawl through. Stun is good by Rapio, but no further follow-up beyond there. Both members of the Eldritch Hounds backing up the tower.
Yeah, surprised that there wasn't more aggression there from Rapio. He blinks in, he gets the stun, and then nothing else. Not a flurry, not a dash. Maybe he used a dash to get closer to that fight as quickly as possible, but definitely should have had a flurry available to reduce some of the protections and allowed Connor to do a little bit more damage.
What? Nothing happens over on the right side. No relics need to be burned there except for, well, at least the blink by Rapio to get to that point. Pred's going for a invade here up against Quig, but quick little dash by Quig will make sure to secure at least the larger of that chest camp for his team. Purple buffs are about to be on the respawn. And Coast and Quig, they're not going to let Pred stick around this side of the map to try and take theirs away.
No, they're instead going to force him back to share some of the wave with Davey if possible, but getting the full wave to himself on that left-hand side is the Hunter for the Niflheim Wargs. Going to be able to get a shield buff as well, get that one over to Preds, and I think that's a smart decision, given that Preds on this Kuzenbo is always going to be aggressive, always going to be under the cosh of some minion damage.
Now, a lot of the Marty games that we have seen as of recent and kind of after a couple weeks of jumping competitive have been in the mid lane, a more power burst style of build. But how do you feel about him in the dual lane? I mean, we see that Davey's going towards that same build, but How do you kind of feel about Marty in the hunter lane as the only hunter for your team, compared to having him something more like a Hachiman or a Rom, even a Cernanos?
I feel like he might lose the damage of the kin size in the mid portion of the game, because he's going in for the Transcendence, most likely will go in for the Soul Eater next, and at that point he then has to decide, does he want to get a little bit more penetration, does he want to get into the kin size for attack speed, does he want to continue off into the full ability based build? There's so much difference there, but you need to have some form of kin size on your team, otherwise Ducky is going to go unkillable, Quig's going to go unkillable, apart from maybe a choice thunder from Preds or Connor, but you can't rely on the relics alone to kill these tanks.
Very interesting ult there by Oath. Believe trying to secure or steal away those mid-Harpy camps. I think he took one of the 3 Harpies there, but drops ultimate, now does not have it for the next bout against Rapio, or to try to go in one of these lanes. Quig pushed back, but now a dunk in by the Ratatoskr on top of just Quig, and inside of his own pillars, it's not even safe for him. The Niflheim Wargs strike first blood.
And it's a perfect gank there from Rapio, and a perfect omen there for the Niflheim Wargs as they pick up first blood and find themselves just shy of 1,000 gold in the lead. And if it's anything that we've learned from our game so far, is that their micro farm over on these side cams, over on these contestable cams, has just been better than the Eldritch Hounds, so they should start to extend this lead even further.
Yeah, Benny Q at least going to get better into the Bastions early on in mid. So that's 150 gold to the pocket of the Raw to try and answer back through. Be alright to say, Niflheim Wargs immediately able to capitalize off that kill, take the shield buff on the left-hand side, farm up those spirit minions. Does Prez, a little bit of extra gold and XP there for the support, which is something we don't see as often. When these spirit surges drop down, a lot of times we see it hit, team fight ends, everybody disperses back to base. Not too many times have we actually been seeing the team sit by and farm up those minions.
No, and it's a shame because it does give you just that tiny little bit more gold. If you have nothing else to farm up on the map, it's always worthwhile just getting that, because you're always better earning 1 gold than you are earning none.
True. Oath jumps up, but a little behind Rapio. Mid camps go over to the Niflheim Wargs once more now on the right-hand side. Waiting for Benny Q's pop. Waiting for the moment when this Raw is able to get active. Niflheim Wargs might want to just try and play everywhere except where Benny Q is. That's typically been a lot of answers. When you don't want to ban a character, you just want to let it through because you think, oh, maybe it's just execution. Sometimes you just ignore the character, and at least for the time being, the Niflheim Wargs are doing just that.
Yeah, and it helps that the pick isn't really the most mobile pick, because Connor's actually going to go aggressive onto Ducky, get a stun. A full combo does about half health, which is a good litmus test for damage numbers that he can put out right now. But instead, it's going to be this left-hand side where we focus as the Darwin pillars have been dropped.
But Gunter is over here, dusts out the apple, doesn't hit the target he wants, but out to Duncan by Rapio, finds Oath, gets another kill. The Wargs now have 2. Rotation from Ducky to try and turn the fight. He's teleported again. The roll off the mark by Benny Q, but the stun is good on the Preds. Should be a casualty. The Hounds should be able to grab this first kill. Duncan by Ducky is just off the mark, but Preds is only buying time for his team to break out.
It took them a little bit longer than they wanted to, but they eventually kill the Turtle and Preds full sound for the first kill for the Eldritch Hounds in the 1-for-1 trade. It was a great engage there for a quick, but immediately turned around. Oath had 0 value in that fight as the Bakasura. He goes in, regurgitates, and knock up because of the spinning turtle.
Unable to get any real value in the fight. Oath goes down for his first death of the game, alongside Quig, who died just earlier on. So a 1-1 trade over on the left-hand side of the map, but support for jungle going to be worthwhile here, especially when the jungle is falling so far behind. Oath 2 levels down to Rapio, only 7 in. Oath wants to try and reprise that with his rotation to the side of the map, but the only thing he's really able to do is to start securing some of these camps.
Yeah, now have a look at the damage numbers on that left-hand side. Bottom 2, oh, well, we're going to hold on for that for a second, because Coast is under a lot of trouble here.
Dash is off the mark by Preds, and Coast will be fine just because of that. Still, had to use the mounted archery to get himself out, had the beads in case the push does connect. But Coast lives, but forced back to base once more.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see if you are Coast, having to use your mounted archery like that. You've given up one form of safety, and it's a big form of safety as well, simply because of how much distance you can cover with that mounted archery. Yes, you still have your purification beads, but your dash isn't going to carry you as far.
Now let's see when Benny's able to get involved again. Missed the snipe during the last team fight. Dropped out a nice little heal, a good beam for some early damage, but still not as active as maybe he and the Hounds would hope to be. And going back to this Ganesh, it was Something that was maybe a little questionable in game number 1. Your real only initiation is to dash into enemy lines and try and find that knockup on somebody, maybe go for the setup here. So I'm curious as to why maybe they go back to it here a second time. With beads down by Coast, now an opportunity for Rapio, maybe for Preds to try and come back over.
Yeah, back to the Ganesh. I think it's one of those picks that you have when you have a pick that you want to protect in the backline. Think about when Zeus was somewhat viable. It was only played when you had the Ganesh on your side, simply because the Ganesh could peel, could set up for the Zeus, and give it the time and space that he needed to drop down all of his damage before he inevitably died. Same sort of thing here with the Ra, but at the same time, Rapio's under trouble. His Quig and Oath have found a combo.
Silence is preventing the ultimate from going through. Beam just off the mark by BennyQ, splits the uprights between Gunter and Rapio, but Preds bailing out for his teammate, getting that watery grave, and giving Rapio the space needed to get out of that team fight.
Yeah, that is a unfortunate scenario there for the Eldritch Hounds, because they find a good pick onto Rapio. They do find him in the jungle and catch him completely unawares, but they're unable to finish off that kill. And I think that's due to the Manticore spikes, which you do see coming out from Rapio straight away. Gives himself a little bit of protection on both physical and magical, which probably does end up saving his life there.
I've been seeing this item kind of pop up a little bit here, mostly for your solos, very rarely the support, but also in these junglers now, especially ones that have been building a little bit tankier. I've been seeing this Manticore spike pop through. Preds in the middle of 3. We'll throw out the Kappa just to give himself some extra space. Coast taking the 1v1 against Davey, losing out on that one. Nearly half his health taken away just by some early poke. BennyQ versus Rapio's going about even between the two of them. The Eldritch Hounds, they're down, but certainly not out in this fight.
No, and they're still within touching distance of the Niflheim Wargs. A minute and a half remaining until that first Stygian beacon comes out. And that's where I think we'll see Connor and Ducky start to rotate out of this solo island that they've constructed for themselves yet again, and start to have impact in these team fights. And if there's one thing that we've seen this entire weekend, is that Tyr has had such a massive impact, and Coast is caught out.
Coast CC'd, able to get up in the ultimate just in time, because otherwise the burst damage there from Davey could have been the final nail in the coffin for Vapor's Coast life. Pressure on the left side of the map all over for the Niflheim Wargs.
And Coast must feel like he's done something personal to the Niflheim Wargs, because
yeah, he left their region.
Yeah, for 3 games straight, it's just been non-stop pressure over on this left-hand side. As the Dark Pillars come out, they're chasing Davey.
Push by Preds to keep Ducky away from Rapio. The Niflheim Wargs just trying to bail each other out after extending so far forward to try and get that kill. But now Kana's going to, teleport over and immediately go back to base. Interesting decision by the Tyr, but able to get himself out. Now Quig going for the wraparound. Pillars are not available for him this time through. It's just the double silence to bail through. Coast slamming on us through. Ducky jumps down onto the ground, but Preds gets out. Davey up to the sky to return fire back. Not much they can do with Rapio rotating back through. Finds stun onto Ducky. The spin is good, and Rapio nails number 3 for the Wargs.
Yeah, that's a bit too greedy there from the members of the Eldritch Hounds, and it could get even worse. Gunter rotates over. Rapio still wants some, but Davey and Preds have both backed off to base. The call has been to calm down here for Rapio as he plays aggressively on this left-hand side. They're happy with the pick. They're happy punishing the rotation out of Ducky, but now the call has to be going on his beacon, because right now BennyQ's by himself there.
Oath has been left to his own devices on the right side of the map just to try and solo farm, but now with Beacon contested by the Wargs, Gunter's going to slowly notch away some of what progress that BennyQ had made. But it's a 2v2 of the supports and the mids. Not going to give this one up. Maybe a while before we see this Beacon capped.
Yeah, I think the junglers have to start making their presence known over on this mid side for this to start, to go away from the stalemate that we find themselves in right now. Quig doing his best to stay in this circle. Almost feels like a sumo pit here, and the supports are just standing there as the wrestlers refusing to budge.
Oh, double strife by Gunter. First ability off the mark though. Splits right in between Benny and Quig. This is a stare down over here by the Beacon. Neither team budging an inch. Even though all the progress BennyQ had made, it gets alleviated then by the opposition. But still standing there with that first bar. We might be here for another minute or two.
Wonder what the longest time it's taken for the first Beacon to go down is, because I think we may be on for a record here in this game.
I mean, as far as 2 teams standing by and taking it, this is probably taking the cake for longest one. Now Oath on his way. No, he's got to get
oracles.
Got to get the Oracle Harpies. Those are very important. But so is this Beacon. Finally, we see the Niflheim Wargs give a little bit of room over to the Hounds. First beacon will be capped at almost a minute and a half after initial spawn.
Yeah, and that's just because one jungler comes over, the other one was still making his rotation over towards this mid lane. Rapio a little bit late on the rotation here to the first beacon. But what he's made up for as late rotation to mid, he makes up for early rotations over the left coast. Again, forced underneath his tower because of the presence of Rapio.
Davey has been putting a lot of burst damage through to make sure that Vapor's Coast is uncomfortable into this tower. But now Kana surrounded by 2. Ultimate is just off the mark. Fast Lawbringer from Kana gets him away from Ducky and Oath. And Oath has given up chase entirely. He's just going to let Ducky make sure to keep this chase up. Because of all the pressure on left, Coast has forced Quig to rotate over just to keep him safe under this tier 1.
I'm very surprised, actually, with Oath's build. From what we've seen from most Bacchosaurus, they've gone into the Golden Blade, they've then gone into Kinsize, or maybe gone into Phalanx.
What?
But he's gone straight into the Jotun's Wrath for some cooldown, then Serrated Edge. A completely different build than what we're used to seeing from most Bacchosaurus. Perhaps that's maybe the reason why we haven't seen as much out of Oath as we have seen from someone like Johnny, like Rapio in the past.
Very strange. My only thought to it, maybe just more ultimates. Able to consume camps faster. Ducky in the middle of 3. Up in the sky, Golden Apple hits the decoy this time. And so Ducky will not lose out on too much HP. His clone will give at least word and vision that the Pyromancer was started up by the Wargs. They might just be able to take this one for free. Kana's zoning away, but not enough damage. The 2 DPS aren't enough as Oath tries to get the job busy over on the left-hand side. Able to steal away the purple buff and able to strip away the ultimate from Davey.
Yeah, but that is win-win there for the Eldritch Hounds as they take away, as you said, an ultimate of safety away from Davey, and then they also managed to pick up a buff. But the biggest win is the fact that they don't have to lose the Pyromancer as Vaporish Coast takes the first L of this small little bit of play as he's forced to use his mounted archery.
Well, knowing that Davey and Preds now both without their ultimates, not a whole lot of kill pressure just yet, unless Rapio rotates back over to the left side of the map, and that's where Rapio's been spending so much time this game, has been the dual lane. There's a vendetta out here against Coast, and I think it's the team saying, hey, you left our region, you're in the SPL, but now we get to fight up against you in a match, in a situation that matters so heavily for both these teams.
We used to be brothers, we used to be friends, we used to be teammates, and you've betrayed us. And now we're going to make you pay for it. Vaporish Coast on the hit list here for the Niflheim Wargs. But so far this game, compared to the other two that we've seen so far from between the Niflheim Wargs and the Eldritch Hounds, at this point, there's been one team that's been almost 5,000 gold in the lead, one team that's controlled the pace of the game. We've seen double-digit kills total. This one, a lot more cautious from both teams. They realize that this is the elimination game. They can't afford to lose this. They can't afford to go 4,000, 5,000 gold behind, which is maybe why you have seen a little less oomph from the teams.
But does that favor one of these teams more than the other? You look at the Wargs, got a Ratatosker, sometimes falls off late game, can't fully get the damage, has gone for defense instead to try and maybe alleviate that. You got Kana, who's only going to get more dangerous to kill in the late game. This late game maybe favor the Wargs. They might not need to worry about late game as BennyQ caught out. Lawbringer's there. And Davey, credit for the kill. Now Rapio up on the tree. Who will step forward from the Hounds to be dunked on by the Ratatosker? So going to use that ultimate as a nice little vision ward for himself as the team resets to gold.
Yeah, that is just pure Connor there to get the kill onto BennyQ. Both relics forced out as well, but importantly the snipe was not used, so no big AoE damage coming out there. Ducky's going to stun out Connor. Rapio's waiting for it, but it's going to be quick that gets engaged on.
Shoved against the wall. The CC chain is too strong. He can't even get the ultimate off Gunter. Credit for one. And now Ducky forced out of the fight. Oath pushing up mid, but everyone else is focused on the Fury. Even Ducky's decoy is not enough to deter the Niflheim Wargs.
Connor once more.
Ducky and Coast still standing by. Ultimate available for Coast. Ducky, full HP on the Wukong, has a chance to steal this away, but Connor's going to keep Coast out of the fight. Ducky rooted plays. Oath is here to the back line. The Wargs hit the Fury, but Oath gets one. Oath tries to jump away, but there's still four standing. Into the sky goes David. Into the grave goes Oath. A third kill for Davey.
And the strife might just save Rapio's life. There is a Ridge Ducky. The snipe is off the mark from BennyQ. And the Niflheim Wargs open this game up ever so slightly in their favor. The gold difference ekes to the 2,500 gold, but the experience difference is dead even still. It's a slight lead. It's a sliver of a lead, and it is something that they need to hold on to dearly.
Niflheim Wargs might be losing out on Pyromancer, but a fast rotation from Kana stops that one in its tracks, so the Hounds unable to get anything from that fight. And Davey standing tall on the Marty, 3-0-3, with Rapio right behind him at 2-0-4.
Yeah, we were wondering, maybe potentially the fact that he's going to an ability-based build could spell the demise of the team as they don't have that kin size to take down the tanks, but so far, it doesn't matter. The Sunder coming out from Rapio, of all people, as well as Preds. The two Manticore spikes coming out from Connor and Rapio has just allowed them to burn through the health of these tanky frontliners, and every single time it has been Connor that's been setting them up. I mean, BennyQ, the first one to fall in that fight, Connor found him. Quig was pulled right back into the clutches of the Niflheim Wargs, all started up by Connor again.
Man, did you see the trail of spikes on the ground that were
that was
leading
like
through
4 or 5.
BennyQ? There was just a whole lineup for anybody to come by, grab, and reap the benefits of it.
It's like almost like this way to Ra, please.
Yeah, it's just the ooh piece of candy along the way. It's like, ooh, Manticore spike. Ooh, here's another one. Let's just keep stacking up that damage.
Ducky, no, he's behind you.
The Warg started the Pyromancer. Ducky runs in, tries to go for Gunter, uses the ultimate. Dark Pillar's used as well. Gunter is effectively out of this fight, but the rest of the team of the Wargs are right in. Triple ultimate from Kana to slow things down. BennyQ heals as much as he can, but he turns it out. Oath and Ducky and a big sight from Benny. It's a double kill from Oath. A 4-man wipe for the Hounds. Davey stares on in defeat as the rest of his team crumbles to the Hounds.
And Connor also got picked off on the right-hand side by Oath. He dies on the right there before anything goes down in the mid lane. Ducky's looking for Davey, looking to zone off, because look where the rest of the Eldritch Hounds are. They are looking at the Fire Giant. What looks so good for the Niflheim Wargs has turned to despair in a matter of an eye.
Ducky not going to let this beacon go for free, or he might just have to. Davey standing his ground. We saw the 1v1 earlier, but that
Davey,
one was
no.
way later through. Now it's Davey versus 2. Oath body blocking and big shots from the Bakasura. Eldritch Hounds get fire on all 5 in a delayed deicide.
And it's all on the back of BennyQ, the man who lived. He was dead to rights. That Aegis buys him just 1.5 precious seconds, but that's all he needed. The heals that come through, the peel that comes through, and then all of a sudden, there was no damage coming out from Rapio, no damage coming out from Connor that could even touch him, thanks to that extra movement speed afforded to him from his passive. And because he lives, he turns around, takes Preds out the game, and from there, it was just all Eldritch Hounds.
This ethereal staff's putting in work for him too. Not
yeah.
just the extra HP afforded to him, but all the steals that he's getting during these fights. Being able to shred small bits of HP, give it right back to him, keep him alive here. The Niflheim Wargs, they had a firm grasp on this game, but the Eldritch Hounds have pulled the rug out from under them so far.
This is what you want to see if you are a fan of the Eldritch Hounds. They were down in this game, but they weren't out. And now they feel like they are in control. Fire Giant around the waist of 5 members of the team. And they're grouping up. They're going left. They want to take down this Phoenix on this left-hand side. Mainly because it is the furthest away from the Fire Giant. It makes the most sense if they can get it. If you're Niflheim Wargs, you have to try and defend this Phoenix line.
And even despite, I don't want to call it a rocky start for Vaporish Coast, but the bullying that he received in the early game, and has not stopped him one bit. 1-0-3. Teleport into the tower. Runic Bomb even used to try and take out this tier 2, but it's not quite enough. Ducky on the right side. Oath blinks out. Ducky has that teleport, though. Can rejoin the team at a moment's notice, but he might just take the long walk back, as it's a slow movement by the Eldritch Hounds through this map. Primal Fury still up. Seems to be their call to go for.
Yeah, they stepped into the tower to see just how good the defenses were. And they think, yeah, maybe not right now. You know, there's too many people around. It's a bit too suspicious to try and take this tower. Let's just step back off, take Gold Fury first, wait for the defenses to disperse. Benny fires out a sniper and hits nobody, but the Dark Pillars slow down too, and that could be all she wrote. Connor goes in, but he's silenced immediately.
Can't get any damage, but look at what Gunter's able to return back. Coast and Benny both clipped by the damage. Oath doesn't get Rapio's dash with that regurgitate, so now an ultimate down for Oath. Benny's back up shortly. Remember, a very small cooldown on that raw ultimate. With Ducky standing by, they've got ways to get in this tower.
He's waiting patiently round the corner, waiting for a chance to blink in and cause havoc in the backline. He's going in out. Hunter hits 3, And in goes Connor into the back line.
Finds two with the ultimate, and the displacement from Preds into the back line. He's keeping Benny and Coast out of the fight, but you got to work a little harder than that because Benny's got the double snipe through. Davey to the sky will only buy him an extra moment, but Connor has fallen. Rapio and Davey to the back line to run through as Oath continues his tirade to the back line. The left side Phoenix stands no more. The Hounds have wiped 3.
There's too many towers for them up right now to end the game, but it still could be all over. And again, Benny Q just decimating health bars, crushing dreams here for the EU SEC team.
Benny Q on the raw, took him 22 minutes to find the snipe he needed. What a big one it is! Back online, another one down. 2 Phoenixes gone, the Hounds in control, but they've got to back themselves up. Not much time left on the fire, so the Hounds will now reset.
A lifeline for the Niflheim Wargs here, just a crumb of hope left for them to hang on to as it's now 24.5 minutes into the game. Eldritch Hounds, off the back of a stellar performance from Benny Q, have found themselves 10,000 gold up in this game.
His last 3 snipes have netted in 3 kills. Benny Q, while just shy in a couple of early game fights on the ult, have been on point for these last few. It's now netted him and his team a massive swing back in this game. 9,000 gold up for the Eldritch Hounds. Fire Giant respawning in about a half a minute, and add a Pyromancer and a Runic Bomb to the pocket of the Eldritch Hounds. There is only 2 towers and a Phoenix left standing before the Hounds can march right through.
And they might want to do so before this Fire Giant even has a chance to respawn. The tier 2 tower on the right hand side, the only physical damage structure that does remain over here outside of that Phoenix. And looks like it's going to go down without a fight. The Phoenix has to be defended here by Niflheim Wargs, but they're all backing now. They still don't have the opportunity to stay and defend.
Kana does teleport in time. That's enough of a call for the Hounds to back away. Not going to keep their push up. Head back towards fire, regroup, let Oath go back, finish up his build. If he's got the gold to do so, it does. Odysseus Bow now online. The Eldritch Hounds can buy some time around this Fire Giant. They're in no rush. They got left side Phoenix. They got mid Phoenix down. Plenty of time to work with.
And now it is all just a waiting game here for the Eldritch Hounds. They can choose when to take this Fire Giant. Do they want it now? Do they want it in 2 minutes? 3 minutes? It's completely up to them. Niflheim Wargs don't really have a say in this. But if I'm the Eldritch Hounds, I know I'm wanting to end this game sooner rather than later. Because every single time these games have gone late, these EU teams show up in team fights. And I do not want to give them the chance.
Fire Giant started by the Eldritch Hounds. And no chance for the Wargs to walk up and take this one away. It's another fire on 5. Second Fire Giant of the game for the Eldritch Hounds. Add a 3rd beacon through. We will be watching these Titans now march down the lanes. I believe right side is the only one where we can see that, because it's the only one that still has a structure up for the Niflheim Wargs.
Yeah, it might have been that mid lane as well, given that there's 3 structures there as well. But I think it just goes on the fact that there's 2 Phoenixes remaining versus the 1 Phoenix and 2 towers for the Eldritch Hounds. So right-hand side is where they will go in just a few short seconds. Again, for the Eldritch Hounds, they'll have to kill the Titan twice if they want to be able to end this game. First in the lane and then second in that base. Could buy precious seconds here for the Niflheim Wargs.
For the Wargs on this defense, should they put all 5 over? I mean, what chance do they have? Where's their silver lining in a fight to defend against the Hounds?
Their silver lining has to be their dive onto Benny Q. If they are able to kill this man before he gets off a snipe, before he takes somebody out of the game and into the grayscale for a minute, they have a chance in these fights. But as they have seen in the past few fights that they've tried to do so, he's just been able to live. He presses his Aegis at the perfect time to mitigate so much damage, so much dive potential, and then Quig on this Ganesh is there to provide safety.
Titan doesn't even get a chance to make it past the tier 2 tower line for the Wargs, and now it's just a Phoenix still standing. Ducky and Kana, they're going to have their own bout on the left-hand side of the map. It's going to come down to the 4v4 between the Hounds and the Wargs, between middle and right side. Benny Q's going to heal up the poke that Davey can throw out. Oath going to stand by and wait for an opportunity to jump in with the minions. Remember, it's a weakened Phoenix in mid and left. Ducky may even be able to stick around and take this one down himself as Rapio does his best to defend the bird.
Yeah, all 3 Phoenixes are up right now, so the Titan is technically invulnerable, but those 2 weakened Phoenixes are going to be taken out quickly. Oath takes out the middle one, and Ducky positions himself in this left-hand one. But again, he has to back off for now as the Titan starts to finally make its presence known on this right-hand side.
Oath resetting in the jungle. Right side Titan pushes forward. Coast and Benny nearby. Rapio can get over in a moment's notice, but Ducky can't have the flank maneuver. The Phoenix is now under fire by the Titan and by the Eldritch Hounds. Ducky goes up into the sky with the ultimate. Oath still waiting for an opportunity to go through. Preds in the backline with Kana. Can they take down Benny? Can they take down anybody? Benny is Aegis through everything and only will just barely go down. No, he's still alive. Got the heal down. Benny just will not die. The Eldritch Hounds will not give up. It is only Gunter alive, and the SPL will ring true. It is the Eldritch Hounds on top. Benny Q throws out a snipe for good measure as the Eldritch Hounds knock out the Niflheim Wargs.
The SCC dream is over for the Niflheim Wargs. The Eldritch Hounds put them back in their place, but it is one man and one man alone which has done so. Benny Q with a stellar performance. I think that is one of the standout performances of the weekend. Forget your pentakill on Johnny. This man is on a tear.
Benny Q qualifiers coming into Season 9 of SPL says, you know what? Raw looks real good. I'm going to go with this kind of oddball style of build. I'm going to play Raw. I'm just going to be better than everybody. And he does just that to qualify into SPL Season 9. Now we're here in Season 10. Says, hey, I need to qualify into the Masters bracket. Well, I'm going to do just that. We're going to bring out the Raw again, and we're just going to hit those snipes better than anybody else out there. And nobody's able to kill him. That last fight, he absorbed so much damage with that Aegis.
And then once the Aegis was over, he was on 10% health, 5% health, if that. And they still can't finish him off. There was no damage that was able to go on to him because of that heal that was surrounding him, because of the silence that was surrounding him. The Dharmic Pillars giving him so much protection as well. To protect the President composition comes out clutch here.
Benny Q, the Eldritch Hounds, they find their win over the Niflheim Wargs, and they move on. Their opponents later on will be the Highland Ravens. They're going to take a break. We're going to take a break here on the cast, and we'll throw it back to the desk to break it down.
What a game there from the Eldritch Hounds. They bounce back. They find a reverse sweep. What just happened, Trilly?
I can tell you, I was a big fan of the Benny Q performance, don't get me wrong, but there is no way that Raw survives so long in the back line if Quig is not there peeling. I was a bit sketchy on the Ganesh, but it did seem like the silence was so big. All of the CC that this Ganesh was providing made sure that Benny could sit in the back line with his juke shoes on, of course, and hit those clutch snipes and make sure to stay alive so many times in the back line. I got to give credit to them both. I think that Quig and Benny were putting on a show in the back line together, and it ends up working out real well for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may have been a mistake to let Benny go back to this Raw. I saw people in chat calling it Himmy Q.
I heard that one, yep.
He's just him, as it appears, and I think you'll see a little bit in this highlight reel. Everybody, really, from the Hounds coming alive, especially in that last team fight. And Oath going to a new pick this game. I mean, obviously he's shown prowess on the Bakasura in the past, but forced off the Cirquette, I'm not sure that was the best idea. Maybe you would have rather had him on the Cirquette as opposed to the damage he was doing on this Bakasura.
Look at that silence. Such a long time, too. And that's what I'm talking about. I talked about it pre-game, about how Oath knows exactly when to say, hey guys, don't worry, I'm going to show up, I'm going to start farming with you, or B, I'm just going to go split push, I'll show up with a big lead, and then I'll make my impact known. Down 5-1, Oath shows up to that Gold Fury, finally decides to get involved with that Bakasura, and makes a massive difference. So I think the entirety of the Hounds, this is the gameplay that I expected from them. I was a bit shocked about how Game 1 ended up, but this is vintage Hounds here. This is what we were looking for.
Now, you were right to have confidence in the SPL squad. Wargs definitely looked solid Game 1, but Hounds, I think, like you were saying, they downloaded the game plan. They took their time, made sure that they were able to get their compositions in Game 2 and in Game 3, and so much it felt like revolved around this Raw. Benny Q just kept generating plays, it felt like, out of nowhere. This snipe can reach all levels of the map. You can be behind 2 walls, and you'll still be dealing that damage. He can, I mean, it's just generating out of nowhere from a mage you don't even necessarily consider in the conversation of, like, ranged mages. Like, it's Thoth, Agni, and Ra?
Yep. Now it is. We got to get Raw in that conversation. I'm glad because we've heard rumblings about the Raw. It was such a long time ago that Benny was having these pop-up performances, but I'm glad he decided to bring it out here today. And now we know it should still be feared a little bit.
Should still be feared. And we've got the Raw player himself, Benny Q, standing by for an interview.
That's right. I've got the big differ himself, Benny Q, standing by with me. Benny, how's it feel finding a win? You know, you got to sit back, watch a lot of this Masters tournament so far with the SCC teams coming out for your first set, getting the full squad back together for this event. How's it feel coming out with a big win here today?
Feels nice to see everyone in person finally. I was a little nervous today because, I mean, those EU SCC guys are kind of crazy, but yeah, it feels good.
Now, knowing that you've gotten a win up against the SCC, you get a fight against the SPL a little bit later on. You're going to have the Highland Ravens as an opposition. Had some time since we've seen these guys. It's been about a month of play. New patches kind of come out through. How do you kind of feel for you and your team going up against the Ravens later on?
It's been a while, but typically we struggle in the matchup. But I think we prepped pretty well, so I'm pretty confident.
Now, I saw you sitting back here watching the highlights from that game between what Oath was able to do, the big snipe that you were landing. How did it feel getting to bring the Raw back out, not just in Game 2, but here in Game 3 and finding such big snipes with it?
I just can't believe I got it again. I don't know. Dude, I just keep trying, and I just hit it.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, Quig bringing out the Ganesh as well. Looked really good. Congratulations on your win, Benny Q. I'll let you get back with the team to celebrate. We'll go back to the desk.
Benny Q surprised that they let him have their Raw again. I think maybe that makes sense a little bit. Like, I can't believe they just let me keep playing the God.
I mean, we talked about it during Picks and Bans. We're like, can you even afford to ban out the Raw? Because there was so much that it seemed like the Wargs were worried about. You're giving Oath something disgusting if you are banning away that Raw, so they decided they couldn't do it.
Well, with the Eldritch Hounds taking that one, we can take a look at how the bracket is rounding out. Earlier today, we had the other EU SCC squad taking it against the Gladiators, so they're going to be playing up against the Oni Warriors. That set is coming up next, another best-of-3 elimination matchup. And then to close out the day, it'll be the Eldritch Hounds, who have now made it into a quarterfinal, going up against the Highland Ravens. You just heard it there from Benny Q. Maybe not the best matchup for them, but certainly a renewed sense of confidence going on the hot streak after coming back and reverse sweeping that set.
Yeah, I'm glad that they prepared for the matchup as well. Shows some confidence, pre this matchup, saying, hey, if we get through the Wargs, we're going to have to deal with the Ravens. Let's make sure we know, at the very least, a game plan going into that matchup. But certainly should be a tough one. It's been a while since we've seen that team play. They've been able to sit here in this slot for just about a month now, something like that. So excited to take a look at that squad. And, of course, happy for the Hounds. They played well. They deserved it.
Next one coming up is going to be the Hex Mambo going up against the Oni Warriors, the undefeated Oni Warriors in that. So far, the Hex Mambo have gone undefeated. We'll see if they can continue that run in our next set right after the break.